And now it's time for headlines with JT and the Hootastic panel.
Hello, Who viewers. Welcome back to Who's Views. It's headlines. Happy July. Yes, it is indeed the 2nd of July, 2024 already. Can you ever just imagine? Well, obviously you can, but very, very welcome to us here at Headlines here on Who's Views. Have you heard? A particular fan today has been kicking off again, hasn't he, with his delusional rants and raves. Oh, yes, he has indeed. And we're going to be looking at that in just a couple of minutes. And Bedouin will be here shortly with the final of the ratings analysis, which I think prove once and for all that Doctor Who doesn't have an audience. Let's see what you think about that in the chat coming up. Delighted to welcome back to the Whotastic panel as ever. We've got third Doctor Ian and we've got Paul here. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Right, so listen, we're going to crack on, everyone, because we've got another big show for you here. So let's get straight into this. And the mess that's been going on today, guys, absolute nonsense that's been going on. So have you seen this, everybody in the chat? What has been happening today is on X. Where else would it be? It's never going to be face-to-face, guys, let's face it. But on X today, poor old actor James Dreyfus. Oh, yes, Mr. James Dreyfus has been getting targeted yet again by guess whom? Alleged fans from a certain walk of life and certain beliefs and a certain TQ cult. And they've been getting at him, and the poor guy has been harassed all day. What has he done, you might say? Well, nothing, because it's all retrospective, isn't it? But he had the nerve to take a job, everybody. He took a job.
How dare he?
How very dare he? It's
very, very
outrageous.
dirty, yes.
In case you don't know, Mr. James Dreyfus here he is again there for you. Mr. Dreyfus has starred in the past in films and television, including Gormenghast, Notting Hill, The Thin Blue Line, Gimme, 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 one of my personal favourites, Ab Fab. He did an American show with Bette Midler called, strangely, Bet. He's also been in My Hero, Casualty, The Sarah Jane Adventures, Whitechapel, Supernova, and his latest venture, he says this himself, is a small role in something called The House of the Dragons, which I believe is a Game of Thrones.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of that. I don't know. Something to do with dragons and things and all that sort of stuff. So it's probably all lots of rah and ooh, rah and ooh. And all that.
There's Les Dawson in it.
I was just gonna.
Anyway, so there's plenty of that going on. Wouldn't that be good? Carry on House of Dragons.
Sounds superb. I'd watch that, yeah.
Right, copyright, trademark, Whose Views, we'll write that. Anyway, so let's back to this. A particular fan who will remain nameless on this channel at all times. I'm sure you can all guess who it is when I show you this. But he, over the last 48 hours, definitely tweeted, if that's still the word, this. I'm sorry, but whose idea was it to cast insane anti-trans actor James Dreyfus? Notice he didn't copy Mr. Dreyfus in House of the Dragon when you have a non-binary leading actor. That should be a basic duty of care thing. You don't cast someone in a show who wishes harm on other cast members. Now, there's a few things about this. One, I would say that's libelous. Yes. Absolutely, totally libelous. Yeah. And secondly, you've got this other thing about he's not anti-trans at all. And we can talk about where that's all come from. But I would also like to say to this lunatic that puts this stuff out there often, there's no such thing as non-binary, you utter idiot. This is the show business, isn't it? And there are utter fantasies and touchy-feeling. Oh, look at me. Oh, I feel like this today. Oh, my God, I feel like a pint of milk. Oh, my God, you all have to obey what I say. Oh, today I'm going to be an elephant. Most of them are looking at their asses. But, you know, it's a real case like... Allegedly. You know, it's a case of like, no. Anybody that's coming out right now saying, oh, I am non-binary, in my opinion, needs to be referred to specialists, because there's no such thing. You're either male or female. You're either born with a penis or born with a vagina. How can you be non-binary? And when I saw this earlier today, now that I have to say, I blocked this particular piece of insanity, oh God, ages ago, when I just thought I got very, very tired of his nonsense. So this has been sent to us by our very own Michael. Thank you, Michael, for that one. It did kick off though, because Mr. Dreyfus got back to this when it eventually got to him. This is what he said. This was his first one, obviously on the day out from his ward, and then he mentions the person that we won't mention. How do you actually function from day to day when you're so disturbed that you spout these loony babblings in all seriousness whilst drooling into your Rice Krispies? It's baffling. To which I went, brilliant response to this utter lunatic. And then it got a little bit more serious because Mr. Dreyfus came back with this. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. The one who will not be named. You've got until midday to delete your defamatory tweet, which also encourages others to discriminate. It's as simple as that. Check your email. One who won't be named. I'm not mucking about with you lot anymore. Well, good for James Dreyfus because he's had with this for years. And in case you don't know, everybody, where this has come from, this has all come from the same place as that happened to people like Gareth Roberts, who's been on the show last week as well, of course, Graham Linehan, various, especially women, who supported the J.K. Rowling statement or a letter or whatever you want to call it, where she said, hang on a minute, we need to talk about this because too many men are now invading women's spaces. And that's where it stemmed from. That's not transphobia. That's not any sort of phobia. But what they've done is they've gone ahead and labeled it. And people like this fool have come back and said, hang on a second, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon and I'm going to believe that. It's just ridiculous, isn't it, guys?
It is. I mean, I think he's been through the mill. I'm really pleased he's standing up for himself even more this time because I think he deserves to have another chance because he was kind of shut down and kind of almost cancelled for no good reason at all.
Yeah, I mean, he did lose work out of this as well, as many people did, as we know. A lot of people have done that. Good for James, says Divining Dragon. I totally get that as well.
Do we know if the tweet was taken down by lunchtime? Did it disappear?
Well, we do. Let me just hide that out. Yeah, we do, and it wasn't because a couple of hours ago, before the show, I checked on James Dreyfus's X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and this is what was there. Anywho, it's now well past midday, and your defamatory lies about me still remain up. We'll meet again soon, I'm sure, he says in a quote.
Look forward to that. I hope it's quite punitive, really, because it is it's very libelous. The person that posted it will be required to provide proof that he wishes harm on trans people and that he's full of hate and everything. And of course, he won't be able to do that.
Nope.
He'll be in an awful lot of trouble and not before time. And it could absolutely financially destroy him. Again, not before time, if that's the kind of things that he's throwing out. And at the very, very least, as well as having to take it down, he should be forced to pin a tweet for a certain length of time to his channel, making a formal apology and promising never to be such a naughty and silly little boy again. But personally, I prefer it if it was really punitive. I think it's long overdue.
Oh, it's totally long overdue because this is a particular person, of course, that has absolutely gone for this on so many ways, hasn't he? He's so desperate to remain. I mean, this is what we're dealing with now, not just in alleged fandom, but in society. We have these people now that are so desperate to be seen as the right person, and on the right side of history,
to be relevant.
Yes. And then we've got certain people, like we reported last week, who are involved with the show that are coming out with this utter nonsense. And I'm looking at certain actors and showrunners and casting directors and all that here. Those people that spout all this, therefore empowering these people, thinking, oh, I've got to do what they're doing. This is the sickness that's around here at the moment. And it's all because these people, and it's been going on. You can actually go and look at this, Mr. Dreyfus's Twitter page now. He's been very eloquent all day. He's been very good. And he's come out because he's had attacks, of course, from these various people calling him for everything. Nothing new for him at all, because he's had it for ages. And he's dealing with it. But he's gone back saying, this for the umpteenth time, this is the clarity of where I stand. And all he's doing, like any normal, regular, common sense person is doing, is saying we need to have this discussion because there are men identifying as women and going and invading their spaces, their sports, everything. And it's got to stop.
And then you get these emotive words like attack and hate and all that kind of stuff, which is not what it's about at all. It's about having a discussion, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And from the same people that are always preaching, be kind, when it refers to treatment of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, it's
happens every time on my mouth, doesn't it? It's really bizarre.
It's like Tenet last week, isn't it? It's, you know, why can't everybody be nice to each other, be kind? Why can't people just live their lives? Oh, and by the way, that woman there, I wish she didn't exist. And I want freedom of speech for everybody, but she needs to shut up. It's utter hypocrisy.
Always with them. I mean, I keep saying that, don't I? I mean, the hypocrisy with them is all, but they are supposed to be role models. And what they've done is they've created a generation or two of clones that just do what they're doing and don't even bother looking with intelligence at what is being said. And that's what gets me. So I'm actually all for, as many of you are, it seems, in the chat here, for Mr. James Dreyfus. And I hope that he has already consulted his solicitors and he's gone to see this person and they're going to get in touch, because it's just absolutely ridiculous that every day these people, you know, it's just.
I think they need to be taught a lesson. They can't just blurt this out and get away with it, and hide behind your keyboard or whatever you're doing, so you're not being seen. You know, hide behind Twitter or X, or whatever. It's just not on.
Yeah, and all for taking a job, all for taking what James says is a small role in the House of the Dragons.
How dare he earn a living?
What?
How dare he earn a living to earn money to pay bills?
Yeah.
How dare he?
Yeah.
You know, what right does he feel he has to earn a living?
Because the thing, if the shoe was on the foot, if the person who was doing the cancelling was cancelled, how would they like it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And this whole thing about, you know, when anybody says to me, "Oh, cancel culture doesn't exist," I say, "Pardon," and then I'll use James and Graham Linehan and Gareth Roberts as the examples, really, and say, "Here, there's 3. There are millions more, especially when it comes to women who are being told to shut up every single day now, aren't they?" And that's now become, thanks to a certain individual over here that we talked about last week, that's becoming a bit of a fashion now as well. And you know, it's frightening because come Friday, these people are going to be running the country.
Yeah.
It's quite disturbing, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, they're not the people I know.
No.
You know. Thank you, everybody that's in the chat with us here. Saying all sorts of things, but yes, this is James Dreyfus, who was in Bogfanish. He was there, and they dropped him for this thing because they were terrified of the TQ activists. And yes, they have obviously fallen out since then, but there was no real reason for them to drop him. He had recorded shows. He had done shows with Tom Baker, and then they cut him out of all the publicity there as well.
Yeah.
They're desperate to appease and worship at the altar of Russell T Davies, aren't they? They're desperate to stay on side, because in cancelling people, they're petrified of being cancelled themselves. And I know you're a fan, Paul, but you know, I lost patience with them around the time of Zagreus, where it was, even then, in my opinion, disappearing up its own fundamental.
But Zagreus was a pile of poop, to say the least. But it got better. It has got better. It's been up and down, but it has gone a bit like that, to be fair. But
well, I personally wouldn't buy anything else from them now, because I won't support their bandwagon politics. You know, and basically, and the way that they treated Mr. Dreyfus for that, I'll never forgive them for that, because that was just, they are so frightened of these alleged activists coming after them, when they're actually very small minority of people. I know, okay, yeah, you could argue it's growing because the poison is growing, but reality has to be adhered to. Reality is and truth is not any sort of phobe or ist or belonging to an ot. It's reality and it's truth. And you've got to stand up to these people, and that's exactly what society hasn't done. We haven't stood up to these people until fairly recently, because more people have become aware, and now they've become aware and said, "Hang on a minute, you can't do that," you know.
And we're getting sick of it. That's the thing. So
it's always the same, isn't it? You're an art, you're an ister, and people are becoming, "Oh, what? No, hang on a minute. This is the
try another phrase, can you please, for God's sake? Be more original." Yeah. And
they're never going to. Divine Dragon is saying, when will this constant cancel culture practice come to end? I hope I know. I wish I knew, and I would hope it's soon, but I don't think it's going to be, because obviously here in the UK we will have a new government come Friday, and when I look at the majority of them, especially the one that is you know, being told it's going to win, it's all there. It's the ideology, and the key word is ideology, DD, is all embedded in all of their policies. This fantasy is all in there. And it worries me because it's not reality. It's not truth. It's not fact. It's not what the majority of the world population think. Try doing this in a country like Dubai. They wouldn't dare, would they? Try doing this in China. Try doing it in Japan. Try doing it wherever. I don't know. It's not right, and it's not truthful. And when you've got people like Tennant coming out saying it's not harming anyone, yes, it is. Yes, it is, and it's harming a lot of women and their rights, their hard-earned rights. It's harming a lot of LGB, but we've all been tagged in, so everybody thinks it's acceptable. It's another lie. Thanks you to everybody that's in the chat for talking to us here. We've got the overseer. It's nice to see you. Bogfanish were absolutely disgusting the way they treated James Dreyfus, and they tried to hide it under the carpet. That was the thing as well. I just don't understand.
Like Barrowman.
Yeah. Barrowman as well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
No courage of the conviction.
Self-righteous and so virtuous and everything, and you can see right through it. It's quite pathetic,
well, because
really.
I know from my experience now of years of having to deal with this and being called homophobic, ironically, and phobic and otten and ist and all this sort of stuff. You stick to the facts, you stick to the truth, and then they start calling you the names because their argument goes nowhere because it's not an argument. It's based on an ideology. It's all this touchy feeling stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and that has no place. If you're having a hurty day because of hurty words, that's your lookout, not anybody else's. And the world shouldn't have to pander to you, but it is, and they're starting to. I was hearing just today that as part of this whole thing, which I'm calling compelled speech, they're now looking at microaggressions, which is when you might be in a meeting or on a call or something like that in an alleged professional environment, and somebody could say you're giving an example of microaggression because you might look away from somebody or roll your eyes at somebody or interrupt somebody. This is a very dangerous, this is very dangerous ground we're going into here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The thing is, though, it could be quite interesting actually, because a microaggression, if that's interrupting somebody, and then that becomes the equivalent of hate speech and a crime, then one thing that we know from all these lefty bedwetters is that they cannot allow you to speak. They will constantly interrupt you and try and shout you down. That's the way they work, because they can't cope with debate, because they aren't mentally developed enough to cope with debate. So they'll cut you off, which will immediately make them guilty of microaggressions. They'll be hoist on their own petard, so to speak. It'd be quite funny.
I think there's a lot of damage being done to society. I think there's a lot more damage coming, but certainly when it stops people being able to pay their rent and their mortgage and their bills, that's disgraceful. And that's exactly what this alleged Doctor Who fan, I mean, do we want anything to do with that sort of idiotic fan? No. And yet, thanks to 2017 and one very stupid and unnecessary decision, they're all here now. They're all here. Although we are coming up to the ratings very shortly, everybody. Are they still here, or have they been fickle and gone away? Very possibly. But this is where we're at. And it's all about these people who I don't recognize as activists. I just recognize them as bullies, misogynists, and exactly what they say the rest of us are. And this particular fan is an example of that. What a really, really nasty, deluded person he is. And he's everything he says everybody else is. Just like most of them, I feel. Thank you to Russ for joining us there. Nice to see you with your comment there. Nice to see you. Welcome to Whose Views, Russ. And we've also got here Stephen Braddock saying to us, it's tragic what's happening with this cancel culture. I got called a hater for not liking the Doctor Who finale. It's because they didn't watch our show then, isn't it? Millywig Zag is saying compelled speech. Yeah, the whole thing about that's what I'm calling this, because it actually is. Some of these parties in the United Kingdom that it's all ironic, really, because it's our democratic right to vote for these people, but they're actually going to be coming in, the majority of them coming in saying, right, if somebody says to you, these are my pronouns, you will be told you have to honor them and use them. They don't know the great British public that well, do they? Because the majority of us are going to turn around and say bugger off and vote them out in 4 or 5 years. But it's going to be a very difficult 4 or 5 years. And I think the majority of the British public who are going to put that X in certain boxes are in for a rude awakening. That's that. I mean by that, Milliwigs out. It also goes on to say, all these goons say speech equals violence. Good point on interrupting, not letting people hear other opinions. It's shocking what that is. I mean, we used to call this debating and discussion, and you can't do that apparently. That's exactly what I'm saying here, Tom.
Wasn't it?
Sorry, say again.
Debate was usually seen as an expression of intelligence. The fact that you could do it, stay reasoned, often put quite opposite viewpoints across and still remain friends. Not agree, but still remain friends. Now they can't because, as I've said, they're not mature enough.
No.
And
those that are mature and are running certain TV shows should know better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But because they can't debate, and it's a miracle they can toilet themselves, they seek to silence and cancel and shout down and criminalize anybody. Imagine that. We're potentially going to live in a society where it's criminalized to disagree.
Yeah. It's like a Monty Python sketch, isn't it? To be honest,
it is.
It's just not funny though, because this is
well, Monty Python's about, so.
Well, I've been saying for the last couple of years, our democracy is hanging on a thread. This will be it going down the toilet. And I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not endorsing any sort of party here. In my opinion, they're all as bad as each other. And this has happened on a certain party's watch, who should have dealt with this 8-9 years ago when they saw it coming, but didn't because they were listening to liberal members of their party. It's absolute nonsense. Who's Lost Eyes is saying, I don't even agree with Dreyfus taking this guy to court, but it's nice to see him knocked down a peg. Well, I understand what you're saying, but I do, because this guy needs it, because he's always on about it, and that is damaging. And the reputation is very important. And it shows there are some people in show business that are higher than this, are actually willing to, because these people were out of work for a while. They had to find alternative jobs. I've known that there's a particular children's writer who's Lost Eyes that these people came after. I'm not talking about JK. No one can touch her, thank God. But there was another children's writer, and she's now a truck driver. Yeah. And she loves it, apparently. But we've lost the talent there, a talented children's writer. And they came after her, got her cancelled. Her blooming idiotic publishers dropped her, and now she's running around the country driving trucks because we need people in that industry. But these people need to be held to account now, I feel, because obviously the parents were never around and they never got told no properly when they were children. Just Jordan is saying rolling your eyes could be a microaggression. Lordy, I'm in trouble. I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
To quote William Hartnell from the Dark Ages of Earth, he's a jolly good smack bottom. That's all I'm saying.
And this is the problem. Yeah.
Yes, problematic.
I genuinely believe that most of them, that's what they needed, and they needed a good telling to. They needed to be able to say when somebody comes up to them and says, "Oh, I'm NB," or "I feel like I'm in another body." Well, you're not. Get on with this. Or seek professional advice. Don't pander to them. Seek professional advice. What are you saying, Ian?
I don't know about smack bottom. I always think of Hancock's Half Hour at this point. They need to punch up the bracket.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah.
It's his nonsense, isn't it? The whole thing. So again, thank you to everybody that's joining us here for headlines this evening. This has happened today, so I just thought, right, we're going to get this in there because this is news, and unfortunately, this tars Doctor Who fans. I have seen several things that this fella has said. It's been passed to me, and he said things. And then the responses are always, why are Doctor Who fans like this, blah, blah, blah. And we're not. Actually, we're not. And I've had to try and make this point to people like Graham Linehan, J.K. Rowling, James himself, to say, these people do not represent us. They are a minority of...
And it's always the minority that come out. I mean, I remember when in the 80s when they seek out a fan to represent Doctor Who, and they'd always pick someone who was a little bit unhinged, allegedly.
Yeah. So thank you to everybody for joining us. That was that particular one here. I want to say hello to Dougie Stewart, who's joined us as well. Hi guys, hope you're all well. I'm enjoying my regular fix of Doctor Who stuff. Good to see you all there. So thanks very much. But yes, basically, Mr. Dreyfus, good on you. I'm certainly standing with you on that one. Enough is enough of this. And that idiot that put that tweet out there, and you all know who he is, and we're not going to mention him or give him any kudos at all. What an idiot. What an idiot. And, oh God, really, get help.
But that's he's got a good lawyer, that's allegedly. So
I really do hope that. Because
he's going to need it.
Yeah.
Marine Boy is saying to us, "Oh, there's nothing like a good debate and a game of chess at the same time." And Huge Janus is with us saying that my pronouns are grumpy and bastard.
I
They
can
can't
relate to
be
that.
mine.
And Matthew's saying here, look, we all stand with James Dreyfus. That's good to know, actually, because, yeah. I mean, come on, these people are ridiculous. Anyway, we'll move on, everyone. Thank you for joining us here for Who's Views. We've got some fantastic stuff coming up for you now because, yeah, if you joined us for our big show on Sunday where we did our season overview, that was a big show, wasn't it, fellas?
It was indeed, yes.
We went so over time, it was unbelievable. We went over time by an hour, everybody, because everybody had so much to talk about. We had well over 250 people in the chat with us, all wanting to have a chat with us as well. So thank you if you were here with us on the Sunday for that. That's why we went, because everybody had something to say. But I loved it. It was a great show. If you haven't seen it, go back and look at it. It's on the channel for you to have a look at. But a great show. And one thing we didn't have, but we sort of didn't talk about, were the ratings, wasn't it? So now, of course, it's all done. It's dusted. And we have the finale of the ratings. And guys, there's only one person that we know that can actually do it, isn't there?
Who could that possibly be?
I have no idea, but let's see who's in the green room.
Is it Adrian?
Yes, it is. It's Adrian. Oh no, it's Bedweer. Hello there.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello. Nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm very well, very well.
So you've got your mathematician, keeper of the skulls brain on. You've got your clipboard and everything, haven't you? And you're ready to go with these final ratings for us to look at, aren't you? The final ones. Wow.
Yeah, we're calling them the final ones because I've yet
good publicity, yeah.
I've yet to properly confirm plus 28 numbers. The changes are fairly negligible, and I can't be bothered. So we're going with the plus
right.
7s.
Do you know what though? This whole, I mean, we know now. Let's just say, and some people are saying hello to you. Isn't that nice?
Hi,
and I want to say thank you so much to Paul Ashworth for your super chat here with a super sticker. That's fabulous. So please enjoy that. Thank you so much for that. Really enjoy. That's great. I love super sticker. I should do a title for that, really, shouldn't I? Domgo is. Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. And Domgo is saying to us, "Yo, Bedweer, let's hear it." Yo, are you American, dear? But yeah, we are going to hear that in a second. But this 28 thing. What do you think about this? Who views? Everybody in the chat. I'm beginning to think that the goalposts are changing constantly to try and justify the fact that this thing must be seen as a success. So we used to get on the night ratings, then we get 7-day ratings, then we get these +4 thing ratings, and now they're actually saying 28-day ratings. Which one are you going to actually publicize? There'll be a year next.
The goalposts are transdimensional, aren't they, to be honest?
Yeah, I think in my personal opinion, I think 7 days is an adequate amount of time for someone who's actually engaged in a program to go and watch it.
Yeah.
Given the modern technology of the iPlayer and streaming and all that sort of stuff, if you haven't watched it in 7 days, you're not really engaged in that program. You might come to it afterwards, but honestly, the 28 days is just adding on additional ones for rewatches and things like that, just to artificially boost them. 7 days, I think, is an acceptable period of time. You know, we've all got busy lives. Some of us don't watch it live, and some of us will come back to it at some point over the course of a week. So I think 7 days is fair, but 28, no, you're just milking it.
Well, a lot of our lovely Who viewers here are agreeing with you all. They just think it's absolutely ridiculous, but it is, though, isn't it? Absolutely. So we're going to start with this now. But to keep your chats coming through, I'll do the best to keep up with you while Bedweer is going through all this. And Bedweer, we're going to start with this one here. So what's this all about? Tell us what your update on this.
Yeah. So this is our cumulative graph. So those who have seen previous episodes of Headlines where we've talked about the ratings, I will be familiar with this graph. So the blue section at the bottom is our overnight transmission. So all those viewers that are watching on BBC One when BBC One shows an episode. The overnight to +7, which is the green section on the top, is not just those who watch it after it's transmitted on BBC One via the iPlayer or recording it and watching it again at some point over 7 days, But with this series of Doctor Who, it also includes the pre-transmission numbers as well. So those who have watched it from midnight Saturday until it's transmitted on BBC One, it includes all those people as well. So our newest edition is the green section at the top of Empire of Death, which was an increase of 1.44 million, which was the average increase from overnight to +7s throughout the series. So
we should actually say
on average.
We should actually say Bedweer as well. What was the actual final figure for the Empire of Death?
So yeah, hold on to your hats. The final +7 rating for a series finale episode only achieved 3.694 million. So 3.69 million. It's not a big number.
It's not a big number at all, is it? And we've got here Stephen Braddock saying the ratings are bigger on the inside than the outside. Domgo is saying, I've heard that Doctor Who is smashing the ratings in the under 12s with ginger hair community. It's a hit.
Well, they don't share
the demographic they're going for, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's about 12 of them, isn't it? So.
Yeah, and Russ is saying to us here, 28 days later, very apt, and basically Doctor Who is a zombified version of its former self. You're not going to get any argument here. It's a smack of being rigged all the time.
Well, the 28-day figure came from the fact that if a program went out on iPlayer, you had 28 days to watch it, and that had already been an extension from 7 days. Now, with Doctor Who just being on there constantly, it's irrelevant because you can watch it whenever for as long as they keep it on there. So it doesn't.
Yeah, we've got an awful lot of you commenting here as well. So thank you. Marine Boy is also saying to us here, I'm surprised it never dropped below 2 million. Nearly. It's very close. Wait till the next one, I reckon.
There's time yet. There's time.
Absolutely. Georgie Boy is saying, can't be bothered. Sums up this entire season for me.
Yeah. Well, I only watched one episode, so I can't. This is why I haven't been on the review shows, because I only watched one of them and it was pants.
Yeah. And Paul is saying to us, Paul Ashworth is saying, can we have the 60-year ratings for William Hartnell? That would show RTD and up and with the club. And that's exactly why we probably never will. Can you imagine the Pertwee and Tom Baker ratings now? And Tidy
There'll
Boy.
Be a battlefield at the moment, hopefully.
Yes, don't worry. He's good with that. Tidy Boy is with us. Nice to see you, mate. Welcome back. I only watched Space Babies last night for the first time. I had low expectations, but it wasn't as bad as I expected. Not the best thing since Heaven Sent, but not as bad as Orphan 55, which I can't comment on. I never saw it. I'll let the guys
Orphan 55 was dire. Good grief.
Well, if you think that was dire, Space Babies is worse than that. Honestly, it really is. Yeah.
So yeah, we're all divided on that one then, because Ian, you agree with Paul that you think that one was worse, don't you?
Space Babies was definitely worse than Orphan 55, and Orphan 55 was a massive dog pile.
Was it?
I'm glad I watched it then.
I'm glad I didn't see that one as well. And thank you for your super chat to Cute Bryro Zero. Nice to see you. Didn't they cancel Doctor Who when it was at 3 million views before? Why are they not cancelling it now? It sounds like the BBC is desperate to me. It's all about money, Cute Pyro, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing about this is we know season 2's in the can. So whatever happens, that's going to be broadcast. We know that there is a third series coming in one form or another. And we also know that they've budgeted for this alleged spin-off, which they still haven't confirmed. Everything about that is still the rumor. We know it's coming, but they haven't confirmed the title of it. They haven't confirmed who's going to be in it. They haven't confirmed the fact that previous companions are. That's all speculation. I mean, Russell has said he wants to involve as many faces from the past in different roles in the shows, the spin-off shows. I think he had this massive feeling he was going to write all these different shows.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Can I get clarification that in the can's not euphemism? It means it was filmed.
It's filmed, yes. It's not in that. It's not in the American can.
It's not in the toilet.
Rubbish bin. No, it's not there. But thank you for that, Cute Pyro. But I genuinely believe it's because they are slightly desperate, and that's why they're trying to push. That's why they're trying to sell certain figures, Bedweer.
Yeah. Well, we will compare those numbers for the late 80s a bit later as we go through this.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you to Domgo for being there with us as well. And hello to Spooky Dude, who's saying, I really want the Daleks to return and wipe out all New Who, and we pick back up with 7 and Ace. Ooh.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. So we've got all that. Forbidden Man's here with us as well. Hello, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Darren Apken is with us as well. Thank you, everybody. Adrian Sherlock, great to see you too. So let's get on to your next one, please, Bedweer, which was this one. Tell us all about this.
So this is looking at our series finales from 2005. So from the Part in Other Ways, comparing the overnights, the +7s, and from Hellbent onwards, we had those +28s. So the line graph you can see on the right-hand side, the blue line at the bottom is our overnights, the orange line is our +7s, and the green, the last few numbers are the +28 ratings. So, yeah, you can see that we had a nice peak for Journey's End, which we've talked about previously. Bit of a drop down to the Matt Smith era, but fairly consistent all the way through. A decent uptick when it came to the series finale of Jodie Whittaker's first series, but now we have continued our downward trend, and we are at the lowest point ever. So Empire of Death, as you can see, 3.694, just above what the last episode of Flux got on overnights.
Goodness
and it's less people over 7 days have watched Empire of Death than the number of people that watched The Timeless Children on transmission, because it's below the overnight.
Do you know, it's when you see it like this or put out like that, you just see, you know, the fact is this show is in trouble. The audience is not there for this show anymore, is it? They have gone away. This is now, let's face it, this is now, it may only be 14 seasons, but this is a 20-year-old show.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems. People have got used to it again.
And not in a good way.
Yeah.
No, they're rejecting it because of all this nonsense that's going on with the entertainment and the show business industry as well. I want to say a big hello to and thank you to Kirsty, to Garbage, and to Problem Being all in the chat, making sure everybody's nice and fine and all cuddly and cozy. So thank you, you three. Nice to see you. But that is an important. That is important. I mean, look at that, everybody in the chat. Look at this. There's your numbers. Now, again, this isn't made up by us. It's not made up by Bedweer. This is from official data that is in the public domain. You can get it. Because we will get criticism again. We're getting more and more now. You can see it all in the comments, but this is the fact. And for those people again who will come back and say to us the ratings are not important, look at those figures. Yes, they are. They are important because it shows not many people are watching this expensive show. This is the most expensive version of Doctor Who in its history. And no one's watching.
Yeah, well.
Are you surprised?
Not really, with the quality they've been given.
Well, even that, we were just told not to watch, and that, again, was a big mistake. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I am a little surprised because given the amount of publicity and the amount of, column inches and front covers of magazines, and, Russell T Davies was on every sofa talking about the show. Ncuti was,
That's the problem, though, isn't it? That's the problem. Why the alleged producer? Yeah, why him? Why Russell T? He's not a draw with the public.
And
when he's spouting off stuff like he's spouting off over the last few years, he's even more so. I don't want to listen to him waffling on about something because he's bound to go and say something that I'm going to get angry over, quite frankly. So why him?
The best bit of publicity I saw recently was the one with Bonnie on the One Show with Cyndi Lauper. And a conversation about Doctor Who, and Cyndi Lauper said Sutek. I was like, wow. I was like,
well, she's obviously been prepped beforehand for that.
Well, she did claim to be a fan in the 80s watching on PBS, but there you go.
Really? I think, personally, I think she might have been a little bit busy in the 80s trying to make a career.
Probably was, yeah. Probably was, allegedly, yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But Adrian is saying to us here, Space Babies was ludicrous and slightly uncomfortable viewing. Slightly uncomfortable. I didn't know. Oh no, Spooky Dude. I'm not gonna read that out, but I'm gonna disagree with you completely on that one because he's part of the same. He's part of the same nonsensical, lovey-dovey entertainment nonsense. Cute Pyro is saying to us here, Sarah Jane Adventures was good. Shame it had to end. And no. We won't stay with that. And Divine and Dragon. I don't want to see the Sea Devils spin-off. They will only damage more legacy elements. Yeah. Well, we're hearing there's some sort of announcement coming around about that. very, very soon. So when it's made official and we know more about it, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're coming to see us, because we will be talking about that. And one of the questions I will be asking then, who cares? Adrian Sherlock's with us saying they made the Beatles look dismal, which is one of Paul's little bugbears about that particular episode.
Oh God, yeah.
And as Ian and myself have said on several occasions, the second series, as Paul Rose, must be of the same ilk as the first one. So maybe Disney are hoping for that so they can buy it outright cheap.
Maybe.
Can't imagine even now the BBC being that stupid. However, they've been stupid.
Stranger
before.
things have happened.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I've said this before, haven't I, guys? I just don't think they are there. I just don't think the majority of fans have gone. The British public have gone. They've got better things to do. They're probably washing their hair, and the fact as well that, as Kev is saying here, the fans were told not to watch. Yeah, we were all told to go and touch grass. The show itself was at best rubbish. So I want to thank Ncuti for pre-warning me on next season. I will take his advice.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I was told not to watch it. We had Jinx Monsoon telling us that there'd be, 3 or 4 other people to replace my viewership, and it's not being borne out in the numbers.
No, and we'll come back to those in just a second, because Red Wheeler's done a lot more for us, so stay with us. Disney have openly admitted they never wanted Doctor Who, says Cute Pyro Zero. So we'll say on a ledger after that, because I haven't seen that one. Send me the link for that one to whosviews1@gmail.com, because that's a story we can look at too as well. And Domgo is saying to us here, sometimes I wonder if RTD feels bad about the ratings, but sadly, I guess he's just laughing as hard as us. I don't think they care about ratings. I mean, they more or less said that. We talked about it last week, didn't we? The fact that he has said it might not be doing as well in the ratings, but the target audience that we wanted is huge.
Allegedly.
Incredible, really.
Allegedly,
Considered for 60 odd years, it did not need a target audience. It just had an audience. And now they've made it divisive and exclusive, and they're going for a particular demographic who is flaky as hell if it exists at all.
And tiny. Very tiny. Marine Boy says, I'd rather watch this. Well, good for you. We like you, Marine Boy.
If they wanted to be inclusive, it should be for everybody. That's the whole point, surely.
But that's how Doctor Who always was, wasn't it? Yeah. We've had this conversation so many times. Doctor Who, this is why we're all here. And we all come from different walks of life. Because there was something about Doctor Who that didn't judge anybody. It just accepted you in. Come and meet this crazy Time Lord who's having these crazy adventures fighting tin cans. I mean, that how magical and how British is that? And these people have just gone and made it something that is just ridiculous. So thank you for that. Spooky Dude is saying David Tennant also told us he did. We've covered that before here on the show, haven't we? So thank you for that. Problem being, nice to see you. As I say, thank you for being in there with Kirsty and with Garbage as well. Yes. Anthony, thank you for that one. Andy is saying to us here, Disney wanted Bluey.
Yeah,
I have heard this, that in order to get Bluey onto Disney Plus in the US, Doctor Who was part of the deal. I don't know how that works, because Bluey's an Australian show, but I imagine the BBC had some sort of distribution exclusivity. I have no idea, but
I think I've read somewhere that the BBC had in part paid for its production. Possibly
BBC Studios, maybe. Yeah, BBC Studios. Yeah, because they give them their due, and I've encountered them many times over the last 10-15 years. BBC Studios, as a business, they can spot something that they think is potentially going to make them money, and they've done some nice little dramas. They've invested in certain things as well, so they've done well.
So sometimes are we going to give Bluey back now the Doctor Who wasn't so good then? Have it back, it's fine.
All right, let's get back to Bedweir's graphics. So we're up to this one. What's this one?
Yes, so this is our overall +7 ratings throughout the series. So we can see Space Baby started off at 4.01, and we had a downward trend towards Boom. 73 yards remains the outlier, really. A lot of speculation about whether it's just people leaving the television on after the FA Cup final, and therefore 73 yards got a artificial boost. But the numbers say that it is the highest rated episode of the series. And then another drop down to Dot and Bubble, which was the lowest. So we went from the highest to the lowest, +7 ratings. for the series in consecutive episodes. And then it kind of found a bit of consistency at 3.5 million before a little uptick for Empire of Death, 3.69 million. Not exactly massive, and certainly not at the heights of the first half of the series.
It's embarrassing, isn't it, that
that's a good word, yeah.
That the highest is only 0.68 of a million higher than the lowest. I think that sort of like highlights how dire these are. The lowest was really bad, but the highest was only fractionally higher, which means the highest was really bad as well. No matter.
I wonder if the boost was relating to Boom being a bit better or more traditional Doctor Who than the rest of it, perhaps, but only marginally so.
But fewer people saw Boom.
Yeah. Then maybe words of mouth got that, to
I mean,
watch the next one.
It is really interesting to look at these numbers because you're trying to notice patterns and consistencies. And I think Doctor Who has probably got an audience of about 3.5 million over 7 days consistently. So it might not be, it's probably around 2 million that'll actually sit down and watch it on the night. And then another 1.5 million. Like I said, the average change from overnight to +7 was 1.44 million. So that was fairly consistent as well. So I think Doctor Who's audience is about 3.5 million, give or take. If it's it hasn't been raining, unfortunately. It's at the wrong time of year for Russell T Davies to hope for rain to save the show. Whether it's guest characters or publicity for particular stories, but it's slightly ironic that 73 Yards is the biggest hit in terms of viewership, and Ncuti Gatwa was hardly in it.
I love the idea, Bedwell, that they just left the telly on, though. That's superb. I like that idea.
I genuinely think that could be it, because you had pubs all over the country showing that thing. Yeah. And they would have turned it off because they would have been busy doing their job of actually serving people at a bar.
Yeah.
And you just forget about that because it's background noise. So until you have a DJ, if they still have a DJ or somebody like that coming in, probably don't, because it's too much money these days, isn't it? I used to charge a fortune, but it's a real case of that. When the TV will probably stay on until somebody remembers. Oh, we've got to take that crap off.
And some of these pubs have multiple sets across. So. But I'm sure
they got lucky that night, is what you're saying, really. But
I personally think so.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories of people that were in the pub, watched the football, and the telly just got left on because, as you say, they crank the music up. Nobody's really paying attention. It's just on the screens because it's just BBC One, so they just leave it on that. Whereas typically they might put it to the news channel or something like that.
I'm going to be honest from my point of view and say that is a grasping at straw type thing to say. It really is. I put my hands up to that. It actually is. But prove to me it's wrong. And also, as usual, prove to me that this isn't these rabid Doctor Who fans, as we've pointed out many times here, who are going back and watching it over and over and over again with the intent of A, understanding it, and B, trying to push the ratings up, as we see on X and stuff like that on the social media. And also because they are sort of engrossed in it to an extent that I don't think we were. They have to actually put it out there. They have to watch it continually all the time for whatever reason. And I'm not sure what that is, but prove to me it's not them going back and watching it all over and over and over and over again.
Do you remember the days when we would rewatch the videos over and over again because it was well produced, well directed, well acted, and really bloody good storyline, and we understood it and really enjoyed it. So we watched it repeatedly with no agenda. We just watched it. And our repeat viewings counted for nothing in ratings terms.
No, that's true. Lisa is saying, I need a strong cup of Yorkshire tea. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure you do, love.
I mean, I think to just pick up on that point, I think those that are rewatching it and adding multiple views for iPlayer plus BBC One, that sort of stuff. If they're doing it, it's not making an impact in terms of the numbers. So it must be a really tiny minority doing that, and it's not shifting the dial.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting lots of comments, guys. Keep the comments coming, everybody. We've got more slides to go and look at from Bedweer. And we've got this one coming from Lisa as well, saying, ooh, I've also got Mr. Kipling slices. Yummy.
Oh, nice.
I'm now a little bit jealous. I hope you've got some Mr. Kipling French fancies. They're my favorite, although they've shrunk in recent years. I noticed,
Yes.
Mr. Kipling, get your acts together. They used to be huge when I was a kid. Thank you very much. You can send your boxes to whosviews1@gmail.com.
Other cakes are available.
No, they're not. And we've also got here Rick. Rick is saying to us, hiya, Rick. The only good thing that came out of Ncuti becoming the Doctor was finding you all here. Thank you for that. That is brilliant. I'm very grateful for everybody that's tuning in to hear our nonsense every so often. We really, really are. So thank you very much for this one. Graham is with us, also saying to us, good shows can still be made. I love The Haunting of Hill House. That was brilliant. The first series, I thought that was brilliant. He's saying it was a brilliant show. Would Who be better on Netflix, but no RTD involved? I think that for me personally, great question, Graham. Thank you for that. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the guys. For me, he needs to go already. He just needs to go. He has nothing to do with it. I think it needs the rest. I've said this before. I think it needs a rest. And I think they need to start fishing out there for a good producer, an excellent script editor who make a good team, who aren't necessarily fans and will just write what we've just had, which is a load of very poor New Adventures style novels, absolutely awful stuff, who understand television as well and understand that they have to write Doctor Who for everyone and not just a minority, and then look at doing it. I don't think it needs to go on a streaming platform because I've mentioned it before. I think the BBC needs to get its act together and make the BBC iPlayer a global streaming platform that you charge people outside the UK to subscribe to. I don't know what you guys are thinking about that. What would you guys like to say to Graham's question there?
Well, I think Russell needs to go because they want somebody. I agree with what you're saying in terms of a non-fan doing it, because that's we've had fans over the past 14 years running it, and you see what happened in some of those cases, more recently particularly. So I think having a good drama producer, somebody who can do good drama, good storytelling, and can make it actually Doctor Who would be nice.
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely to see the Doctor back in Doctor Who, guys?
Outrageous thought, isn't it? I think I, not surprisingly, echo a lot of what Paul said, really. Anybody producing, not show running, anybody producing Doctor Who in future after such a break, which it does need, does not need to be a fan of it. Just needs to be very, very good at their job. You know, like Hinchcliffe was not a fan of Doctor Who before he started, and I don't think Barry Letts was either. No. And yet there you are, the defining era, I think, of Doctor Who. And a really good actor that's cast because they can act, not because of what they do in a bedroom, frankly.
Or how many TikTok people they've got following them, or on Snapchat or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm old. I don't care about
where were all those people? They didn't come over to watch it at all, did they?
Yeah.
Unless you've got some info on that, Bedweer, have you? No.
Well, Kirsty will also know how many followers he's got on things like Instagram and stuff like that. So where were they? So if they, I think we're at that stage now in all casting where they think about followers. I mean, just over the weekend there, I don't know if you guys noticed, or was it yesterday? Actually, it might have been yesterday. The BBC Studios have announced that this year's Strictly Come Dancing, they are in very exciting negotiations with a massive, massive young YouTuber or TikTok star. Now, the demographic for Strictly Come Dancing doesn't give a toss. Why would they want to know? They want to see people like Angela Rippon for crying out loud, and Esther Ransom, God bless her. And
they always throw in a YouTuber or an influencer.
In a desperate attempt, Bedweer, to get this youth audience that they've now aimed this Doctor Who at. What's your answer to Graham's question there before we move on?
Well, just picking up on what you said, I think you're absolutely right in that the BBC have missed a trick with the iPlayer. All this debate about the TV license. If you sell the TV license as being a subscription to the iPlayer, plus you get, live TV, then it becomes one of the streamers, and it becomes part of that discussion as to whether you get, iPlayer and some live TV, or should we get an Amazon Prime subscription or a Netflix? It becomes part of that conversation rather than, as it currently is, basically a tax for all of us in Britain to pay. So I think absolutely the iPlayer is where their future is.
Totally. Because
as they keep saying, TV has changed. No one's watching live TV. Everyone's watching, via the iPlayer, and streaming services are king and all that sort of stuff. So focus your product on being a streaming platform, but with a massive back catalogue. Imagine all the stuff they can put on the iPlayer from the BBC archives in the same way they've done with Doctor Who.
Totally. Yeah.
Dad's Army, Only Fools and Horses, classic sitcoms.
And our cousins from outside the UK will pay to see that because they love British television, and it's quality British television.
Yeah.
I mean, all of it that they've got up until recent times. So anyway,
that's
Graham,
the way they need to go, in my opinion.
It's mine too.
Yeah, down the iPlayer, down the streaming route, and
I've told
really
BBC Studios 3 times now I'm available at a very good rate to get them sorted out. Not heard back from them. Come on, give me an email. whosviews1@gmail.com.
We're missing an opportunity.
Oh, I'd sort it out. Graham, thank you for that question. Really appreciate that. And Raymond is saying to us all, I'm surprised that the BBC iPlayer figures were consistent at 1.5 million. The normies aren't tuning in despite the advertising. And Julianne is with us saying this RTD series is the new benchmark for atrocious. Doctor Who is now exclusively made for the ideological activists pushing their twisted prejudices. Totally agree. Geordie Boy is also saying the show needs rested for 5 years or so. Timescales are saying to us here, I made it to the present season, sort of am now out as well. And Stephen's pointing out from your graphics there that the best rated episode didn't have the Doctor in it. We've mentioned this before, haven't we?
Yeah.
And Hartnell's Ghost is coming saying 73 yards got higher ratings because folk heard from iPlayer viewers that he wasn't in it. Ooh, we are scathing, but possibly true. Adrian, you may think that, but we couldn't possibly comment. And 72 yards, go Millie, you carried this series. Certainly, I think people were talking more, not that I had normies, the not we, coming to me and saying, oh, have you watched Doctor Who? I didn't have any of that, but I had a couple of friends saying, oh, she was good. Nobody's mentioning Gatwa. Out of the 2 people that I know that have said, oh, I watched this Doctor Who thing. I mean, one of my other people that said to me, oh, I've watched this Doctor Who thing. How the hell can you talk about that on YouTube? Are you not embarrassed? Which at that point I was.
But luckily we don't like it, so we're not embarrassed about talking about it. So it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Graham is saying to us, oh, geez, imagine watching this rubbish more than once, Paul.
I did. I have a confession to make. I tried watching the in-vision commentary for Empire of what Empire of Death is called, and I fell asleep watching that as well. I watched it because Bonnie was on it, and there was a lot of information at the start. I was quite interested in what she was saying, how she got involved, and some of the things they were talking about in it. But I nodded off 10 minutes in, so it's really exciting. So.
Yeah, Hartnell's Ghost is saying, does Barb actually include pub views? Yeah, because it's a television that's switched on the channel.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery surrounding how Barb obtained their figures, whether they are tracking individual sets. But generally, they have, my understanding is they have a certain number of viewers that contribute, and then it's a calculation based on that number of sets. So it's a sample which is then upscaled across the entire demographic based on that small sample. My understanding of it, but
yeah,
who knows?
Our system is totally out of date, isn't it, Bedouin? I mean, you know this. Looking at the ratings now, it's very out of date, and it ties in with the TV license. And yet, the BBC will not look at this and think, "Oh, we've got issues here. We need to do something to up our game to justify the TV license," because it's full of weirdo people.
Well, the problem we have is that the BARB put out these numbers every week. They have a website specifically for putting out, +7s. There are other sites available where you can look at other figures, and we'll talk about a few of those as we go through. And yet the BBC will put out their own numbers. So we picked up on Russell C. Davies saying the first 2 episodes were getting close to 6 million at that point. We can't, that completely contradicts the numbers that we see. So the BBC obviously must have some way of tracking iPlayer views and putting that in the context of the overnights that they're obviously being told as well. So that's the issue is either the BBC has its own numbers that it relies on, and if that's the case, then it doesn't trust or recognize the BARB numbers. So what's the point in any of this?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, because it doesn't tally anymore, does it? It really doesn't tally. Hello and welcome to Who's Views to Thistle Beaks. RTD and team needs to go, and the show needs to be put to rest for a while. There's a lot of stigma surrounding the show. It's very difficult for people outside the UK to understand that, but there is, for one reason or another, and it's constantly being spoken about on the rapidly popular alternative channels to the BBC and ITV, which you can find here on the Tube of Who. You can look at our alternative news shows, which are always labeled by these people as being irrelevant or odds or is and the usual nonsense, just like we all are. But they're always getting at Doctor Who for pushing agendas. It's embarrassing. It really is. When you see it coming up, you just go, oh, and then you get into it. Another question from Dougie before we move on to the next slide. Would Mark Gatiss not be good? No. Next question.
It's one of the same, isn't it? I think if the BBC's own version of the ratings were accurate, they'd be releasing the figures publicly rather than just quoting them. I think they'd be
celebrating them, Ian.
Yeah.
They would be a big rah, 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 like the industry did, and we talked about it way back at the beginning of the year, for Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, for Gladiators, for the Strictly Final or whatever it is, when it's an overnight that they like, rah, 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 rah. But here...
it becomes a BBC News story.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's on the papers, especially the tabloids and all this. And again, it's the hypocrisy. But when it's something like this, now, the issue is here, there should be meetings going on here to say what's gone wrong, fellas. What's gone wrong, everybody here? Because we spent millions on this between BBC Studios, Bad Wolf, and Disney. That's a lot of money, the biggest budget in Doctor Who's entire history, and it's a flop, a massive flop. There is no denying that now. There needs to be some accountability here.
Definitely.
We've got here pointed out from Mark's Stuff personal page, the real test will be the ratings for the first episode of the next series, and also Christmas Day, which we will be interested in on that one as well, because when the Christmas one, if it is on Christmas Day, if that comes up and we look at that one and it's gone down or it's stationary, that could say something. We can say, right, that's good. If it's gone up slightly, we can say it's because of Christmas. But you're right, when it comes back, whenever it comes back with that first episode, that's going to be the real tester. And as I've said before, I have a personal feeling it's going to be coming back earlier than May next year. I reckon we're going to see it January, February. I think Russell will get his way this time around. I think he'll be able to say, well, look, the reason we got very bad viewing figures on the night is because we put it on towards the summer. Let's put it on when it should be on at the beginning of the year, like he originally wanted. Big test there.
If it gets
and that'll make no difference whatsoever. So
yeah, wonder what the excuse would be then. He'd have nowhere to go. He'll have backed himself into a corner.
There was a blackout or a power cut or something. Nobody watched it. That was it. Like the 70s.
Yeah.
They'll make the telly, won't they?
Let's get back to Bedweir's diagram. Have we done this one, Bedweir? I can't remember where I am. Have we done this one?
No, we've not done that one. So again, this is just another visual representation of our overnight and then our +7 rating. So you can see that gap between blue and orange line is fairly consistent. And as I say, it's not really changing too much. That average of 1.44 million people. It's not. Yeah, that gap is fairly consistent. So, again, that increase. Let's take Empire of Death from our overnight to our +7 is a 64% increase from our 2.25 overnight, which sounds like a good amount. But our +7 rating, 60% of that is made up of our overnight. So again, just to counter the argument that, more people are watching on the iPlayer, it's how people watch television. Television has changed now. Everyone watches on
all the usual
iPlayer and not live. The numbers still demonstrate that for Doctor Who, at least, more people are watching it live than are watching it before or after via the iPlayer or other recording and rewatching service.
So basically what this is saying is that these people in entertainment, the people that like to dictate to us and tell us how we're watching and what we're watching and give us all these spins constantly, they're telling us that the way we're watching television is changing. They're wrong. Or if it is changing, it's not changing the way they think it is.
The argument doesn't stack up. Until that percentage switches and you get 60% watching via catch-up, via the iPlayer, using streaming, and beating that BBC One transmission number, it's still the case that being broadcast on BBC One is the bulk of Doctor Who's audience.
Isn't that interesting, Who viewers? After all this time, we've been told this now for several years now, haven't we? Viewing, the way people are watching television is changing. The way people view it's just not right. And these figures available from the public domain are contradicting what we're being told. Isn't this nonsense?
The people who are watching the pre-transmission at midnight are probably watching it again on transmission as well. So it'll be the same people watching it. Yeah.
Well, they're watching it they're watching it at midnight or whatever. And then they're going to be watching it when it's broadcast on BBC One.
And then again on the iPlayer. Yeah.
And then they watch it again.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. And then they'll go and watch it again on the Sunday or whatever, and several times, because they're that into it. They're that obsessed with it, you know. Scott Mullins, nice to see you. Will they not show the second series? Yes, they've got to show the second series. They will show it. They absolutely will. We've got the Christmas one coming, and they will show the second series. And then, as I've said before, there is going to be a third version in whatever format they want to do. It's the big question is, what format does the third series take? And will there be a fourth? Because with ratings like this, you cannot justify a second one, never mind the third and the fourth. There's no, but they had to do all back. Sorry?
They're in too deep. They're overcommitted. They have to show series 2. They can't not.
Yeah, no, they can't. I mean, it's been paid
for. And then they're contractually for series 3. But
because series 1 was so short, it does feel like that season 1 and 2 are just season 1, really, aren't they? Cut in half. You know?
Well, they are. I mean, from a production schedule, they are. They're just calling it different names because you know they just filmed 1, 2 back to back. That's the entire. If you think about it, that's the equivalent to the old 9 months they used to do one season on. So there we go. Now they've got a production break where the team come back allegedly and do the spin-off allegedly, and then they're back next year, which is what 2025 next year to do series 3.
It's a bit like when Moffat did that, you know, 2 halves of the season type thing. A and B, remember he did that for. Was it season 6 and season 7? Same kind of idea, isn't it?
People always forget that, you know, you've got to make the thing, and that takes a year in itself or more, and then you've got to film it as well. So you take it's not. I mean, season 2 it's in the can. It's done. It's dusted. They filmed it last year. They finished a couple of months ago. That's it. You know, Paul Rose is saying to us here, do you know what I always thought would make a great Doctor Who movie? The Iron Legion, the old comic strip with Tom Baker, very cinematic. I wouldn't want it anywhere near a movie now. Keep the comic strips and stuff. Look what he did with the Star Beast. He ruined it. Ruined it.
We probably thought the same with the Star Beast.
I thought there'd be more Marvel stuff coming because the connection with Marvel. I thought they were going to do have more characters involved, like Frobisher and people like that, and blah blah blah. But that may still happen. So.
Well, I hope not, because they would also have to pay things. They pay people to do it because it's not their copyright. What did you say, Badria? Sorry.
Oh, just that we thought exactly the same with the Star Beast, and look how that turned out.
Absolutely shocking. And also, as I noticed, some poor person on social media said this week, you can kiss a movie goodbye now, BBC, and the court got piled onto. But after the results of the movie, the cinema takings from the Empire of Death showing, you can't make a movie of this now. It's all gone. That's gone. Those days are now gone because you don't have a lead people will go and see. You don't have a show that people will go. People don't want to know. As fans, it's hard to acknowledge that, but it's true. They have done this.
Cinemas are struggling generally, so you know, putting television on in cinemas isn't going to help.
Yeah, it's true. And also I read today that theatres, of course, in the United Kingdom are in trouble now, with many of them by the end of the year will not be there. They are closing down because people are not going. And one of the reasons I say, everybody in the chat, one of the reasons people aren't going is because they're putting on a load of political crap for us to watch, where they're preached to, just like we are on television. And people aren't going to pay £75 and over to go and have these liberal ideologists, people from show business, looking down on them literally and telling them what they want. Oh, bugger off. That's not going to happen, is it? Heaven's sake. They've created their own mess. They're talking themselves out of a job here. And if they're not careful, a lot of these people in the entertainment industry will be out of job within 5 years. And I don't have any sympathy for a lot of them, honestly.
Just for balance, I think also some of the issues is the rack concrete that's in some of the buildings and making them unsafe for use.
Yeah, but when you look at some of the majority of the productions that are coming out with a lot of these ideologists leading it, you know, I think that's a big issue when you're paying over £75, and look at some of the productions they're putting. They're woke as hell. Oh, we're casting that person because. Oh, we're casting that person. It's the same as television. Thanks, Lisa. That's really nice. I hope you're enjoying all those. And Dalek Eye, welcome to Who Views. What are the odds that Gatwa will get a BAFTA this year and Doctor Who will win the Best Drama Award? Well, they will certainly pay to be nominated, won't they?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, do you remember the National Television Awards that were actually voted for by the public, and Doctor Who for a consistent number of years did incredibly well? Tennant won with Billy Piper consistently, and hasn't been the case for a little while now, has it?
No.
I think they changed the how you could vote, though. I think you could actually vote and vote and vote and vote and vote, and then they changed that you could only do it on one email address, apparently. So
absolutely. But I mean, they can sponsor, can't they? They can sponsor nominations for awards.
Yeah.
So I think that probably be there. I can't see it actually getting through the panel and winning. And if it does, that would be shocking because it doesn't deserve to be.
Well, they did that for best moment of 2023, didn't they? With the bi-regeneration being the favourite moment for people.
Yes. Yeah. Look, Geordie Boy's saying you might get a fashion award. If it won awards, I would say it wouldn't have deserved them, and so that'd be interesting. Right, so we're going on to this one from you, Bedouin. Now this one here.
Yes, so we're into our charts now. So this is all the +7 ratings post 2005, and this particular end of the chart is the lowest figures. So Dot and Bubble has the lowest +7 rating of all time, basically, but post 2005 at 3.38 million. Empire Death at 3.694, just sort of sits in the middle, not quite as high as our two openers, and then 73 yards, as we mentioned, as the little outlier. I also wanted to bring up the chart position. So a lot of people point to the idea that the position within the chart is more reflective of people's viewing over the course of a week. So in the case of Dot and Bubble, a lot of people pointed to the fact that Britain's Got Talent was on something like 6 or 7 times that week, and that pushed it further down, all this sort of stuff. So for Empire of Death, it reached 18th in the 4-screen chart. And again, it was kind of pushed down there because there were 8 games of football on that beat it. But Doctor Who was also beaten by every episode of Coronation Street, +2 out of the 3 episodes of Emmerdale. It also got beaten by 3 editions of BBC News at 6. So,
BBC News.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But on this occasion, Doctor Who, Empire of Death did finally beat the Great British Sewing Bee, that ratings behemoth that we've been gently mocking throughout the last few weeks. So 18th, not a terrible position, but there is a correlation between, our lowest number, Dot and Bubble, Legend of the Sea Devils 24-25, and when actually the +7 ratings were decent, it was, 10th, 12th. So there is a correlation between the two.
This is ridiculous, seeing all this here. I mean, this is how far this show has fallen. This was once at the very, very top a few short years ago. And then from 2017 onwards, that happened. That's gone on, and they've doubled and tripled down on their way of doing this. It's embarrassing, as you said, Ian. It's just shocking. This
it needs to go to Dignitas. I think it's the only place for it.
Tidy Boy,
mainly destroyed. Yes.
Tidy Boy is saying to us, "I'm going to watch The Devil's Code this evening. Wish me luck, whatever for."
Oh, good luck with that.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't. You'll hate it.
You'll hate it. Yeah. Don't do it. And Hey B, hello and welcome to Who's Views to you. I have a weeping angel mentality now towards the new Who.
Okay.
Exactly.
So for context, within the chart positions, Jodie Whittaker's first episode was number 1 in the chart for +7. And I'm not going to explain 4-screen because it's, laptops, phones, all that sort of stuff. But for, Jodie Whittaker's debut episode was number 1 for the week. It was the most watched thing on television that week. And in fairness, the next few episodes of that series were in the top 5. I think they were, mostly 4s. And even The Church on Ruby Road got to number 3 in the chart.
Well,
for
now
the
you've
week.
mentioned that, we have had a couple of people asking us. Well, thank you very much for all getting in touch with it. whosviews1@gmail.com. I really appreciate your emails. I'm going to say again, it might take me a while to get around to it, reading it and getting back to you, but I will. But thank you. We do appreciate it. And we did have a couple of people messaging us saying any chance that Badouia in the ratings overviews could actually talk about where the church on Ruby Road fits in. So you've very kindly done that, haven't you? So let's go to this one. And there's the church on Ruby Road there in the first column now.
It is indeed. So it is very much an outlier because Christmas Day is a slightly special case because things are closed in the UK. More people are sat at home. So you get a bigger boost in your audience because, you know, there are more people watching television because Christmas Day in particular, people are at home. The television's on. It's you know, it's more of a probability that people are going to be watching.
Yeah. Let's just can I just put that
day, isn't it?
Yeah. Traditionally as well here in the UK, people go to BBC One on their Christmas Day. No disrespect to ITV, but traditionally people go to BBC One. Now, when we were all kids, or certainly when I was a kid, BBC One was the only place you went to. You started at midday with whatever, and you had your film and stuff. You went through Her Majesty, the late Her Majesty, and you went through to people like Morecambe and Wise, or the Two Ronnies, or the Gen Game. And all. So it was the big one for decades. The BBC ruled the Christmas Day schedules. ITV couldn't get a look in. That sort of started to change towards the late 90s, the turn of the century. And now it's sort of bad. But now you've also got Sky and all the streaming people as well. So people can actually choose what they're going to watch when they want to watch it, thanks to the streaming. So that's actually worked against it. But BBC One still should technically have a big role to play. It's not happening at the moment because for the past 10 years, we've been able to predict exactly what order they're going to start with. So you would start with some sort of children's orientated film. Then you probably go to Strictly Come Dancing's Christmas special. Then you might go to another Christmas special. Then you might go to Doctor Who. It's predictable. They're trying to shake it up this year by putting Doctor Who back into the mix. But that's why these things can be big on Christmas Day. But they're not as big as they were, Bedouin.
No, they're not. And, you know, you could... You know, if you want to, at some point, we can have a look at Christmas specials by the time we come up to.
We can do that for the Christmas one, yeah.
Yeah, for what's it? Oh, I can't even remember what they've called it now. But
the new one's called Joy to the World.
Joy to the World. Thank you. Yeah, that was going to annoy me. Yes, but you know, viewership, as you mentioned, JT, has dropped for Christmas generally, because there's more competition and there's more streaming and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But this year will be particularly interesting when we've got Wallace and Gromit coming back. We've got an episode of Gavin and Stacey for the last time. You know, those are going to be big draws, you know, in terms of viewership. Yeah, this particular Christmas will be interesting from a ratings perspective. For the last Christmas special, Church on Ruby Road, you know, we only hit 8 million, but it did put it third in the +7 chart for the week, which is, you know, very respectable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Just point out, 8 million was the +28, not as has been quoted elsewhere at 10+ million. No. That is a lie.
Yeah, well, it's totally fantastical. And I listen to that sometimes and I think, hang on a minute. Was that what they were hoping for? Was that where they were trying to push it up to? You know, Babette Bombshell is with us. Hello, Babette Bombshell. I miss irreverent and satirical Doctor Who. It should be wickedly funny escapist adventure series. Escapism being the word, isn't it, Babette? Because, you know, that's what people liked about Doctor Who. It took them away from the everyday life of, you know, paying the bills, getting your rent paid, getting your mortgage paid, worrying about your car, the kids, school, whatever it was going to be. But now it's all crammed in there because it's another bloody soap opera. It's just a soap opera with the occasional science fiction or fantasy element. So it's such a shame that you can't even switch it on now for however long it goes. I think it was a week each episode by my reckoning. But you can't even get away from that now because something in there was shoved into you again. You know, it's such a shame. So let's have a look. Over the overseer is saying the church on Ruby Road was MID until those awful goblins and the auto-tune music. That was embarrassing. Yeah.
It was a kind of what was to come, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it would have fitted
altogether
in.
Yes,
it would have fitted in with one of those Christmas schedules from the early 70s where where the day's program started with Rolf Harris going around the children's ward. How creepy does that sound now?
Yeah, there's all that. Thank you for your chats coming up. So Bedwyr has now got, so we've now included, thank you for asking us to put the Church of Ruby Road in there. So Bedwyr has now done that. So we're going from this particular one to this particular one. Oh, go on, you're going back to that.
No, that's fine. No, the next one's great.
Okay, let's
it's
go to that,
just to kind of illustrate that, the Church on Ruby Road being a Christmas special is a bit of an outlier. But if you want to take the Ncuti Gatwa era in its entirety, then you kind of have to include it, and I can see why we had that request. But it does mean that we've got quite a drop off.
Huge. Look at that, huge.
Well, as I say, the plus 28 was 8 million exactly, and we're down to 4 million. So we've lost half an audience from Christmas Day. Had this series gone out in January, early part of the year, if it had followed up from Church of the Ruby Road, maybe that drop off might not have been quite so steep. And by comparison, the rest of the series seems, relatively consistent. That's a fairly level plateau, apart from, that artificially increased 73 yards and a slight increase for Empire of Death. There's a fair consistency there, relatively flat line from Space Babies through to Empire of Death, but the drop off from Church on Ruby Road is quite stark.
Stark is being very kind, I think. I mean, that's a death slide as far as I'm concerned. And now they're going to be expecting, we are now in July, 2nd of July, as we're broadcasting here live on Who's Views. They're expecting people to come back to this at Christmas when they haven't even been watching the first series. This is a lot of bad planning here, and a lot of it we know was dictated by Disney. But there's a lot of bad planning here. So they had to wait from December to May, and now they're going to have to wait to December again.
Which is why part of me thinks they might drop series too early. I think in practical terms they can't because of the amount of post-production and getting all the CGI together and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not convinced Doctor Who will be on Christmas Day. I think it'll be in the Christmas period, but I'm not convinced it'll be on Christmas Day.
It might not be. I mean, because the schedules are changing. I mean, Russell T Davies has gone on record in the dark past that he doesn't want Doctor Who on Christmas Eve because that's when people are putting their sprouts on for Christmas Day. Getting families together and not watching television. So he believes that everybody, and he was right in the old days. People were. I mean, look at the Voyage of the Damned, 13 million on the night.
Yeah,
not 7 days, nothing that, on the night. The one with Kylie in, of course. So we got the Kylie fans coming to that. First and only time that's actually happened where fans have come to the show.
Let me bring
got that. But if he puts it on Boxing Day, it hasn't worked for them in the past going on to New Year's Day because a lot of people are out on New Year's Day. So these schedulers will have to be clever here to say, right, if we're going to put it on Christmas Day, what time? Just stick it back to 7 o'clock.
So I can give you those numbers. So Voyage of the Damned got 12.2 million viewers on transmission, and it actually equated to about 50% of the available audience, which is massive.
Huge. Yeah.
It
remember it squashed ITV.
Yeah. It added another just over 1 million. So it got to 13.31 over 7 days, and this was before plus 28s. And so it reached second in the +7 chart.
It smacks to me that, guys,
that was massive. Yeah,
they have taken this for granted. They expected the millions to come back because it was pushing the fact that it was Russell T Davies. Oh, we've got this new diverse Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, who's wonderful. He's marvelous. He's wonderful. You've got to see him. Well, we did see him, and we didn't like him necessarily because your writing didn't justify his ability. You've got all this. I don't think the audience is coming back for this. I don't think it's going to be as big. I think you're right. We are going to be looking at the Wallace and Gromit, the new Wallace and Gromit here on Who's Views. We've decided to do that. We're going to do a special review about Wallace and Gromit. And we will be looking at it in the future headlines as well on the Christmas Day ratings too. I think Wallace and Gromit is going to wipe the floor with Doctor Who.
Yeah. You realise beforehand we're going to have to do the wrong trousers
Don't go. No, come on. We've got a packed
That's no
schedule already.
hardship, is it? To be fair, but
we. Oh God, no! You said it now. We're gonna have to get that into
It's got to be done, JT. Sorry.
It'll be worth it.
it will be worth it. Yeah.
It's the law now.
Marine Boy is saying to us, the Great Escape on Christmas Day every year. Listen, mate, one of my favorite films. I love war films, and that's one of my favorites on practically every other day in this house. I was actually watching it yesterday, and today I was watching The Guns and Navarone. That's the sort of thing I love. Bring it on. So yeah, and hello and welcome to Sir Sydney Rough Diamond. Honestly, the rot was slowly creeping in once the series returned from its 16-year hiatus. You can see it now. I know what you're saying there, Sir Sydney. Absolutely, I can see it now, gently taking the audience up to that bit. And the moment where it really hits me, as it did on the night, was in The Doctor's Wife, where the Corsair thing came in. Yeah. And that's when I went, she's on the way, and we can't stop it. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. Oh, dearie me.
And little did they realise when Tom made that joke in 1980 that it was actually a joke. That's all.
It was a joke. To get the headlines. And by God, it got the headlines. And it actually stuck with us for years and years and years, didn't it? Until it actually happened. And that was a massive, huge worldwide success and phenomenon, wasn't it? We've got a question here.
That first series, we saw the rating spike.
One series, and each one was going down every week.
Then people watched it, yeah,
down every single week. The novelty wore off after the first episode. We've got Thistlebeak saying to us, what do you guys think the viewing numbers will look like for next Christmas and season 2? How low can it go? I think it might be an increase on what we've had from the last episode for Empire Death, simply because if it's on Christmas Day, that is. I actually think it will go below the 2 million if it comes back next year. I don't care even if it's on in January or February. I just don't think the public are caring. They're not watching it. What about you guys?
I agree completely. I think lower than 2 million, and if it is on, it'll be on Boxing Day probably, and it'll get very low audience.
It's done as a series. It's done. It has no credibility. It's got no love in the wider British public anymore, and it traded on that love for a long time. That affection that people had for it, that kept it going in a way, that kept it in the public eye, which is why it won on the BBC's anniversary, and Doctor Who won Best Drama Ever. They hated that, didn't they? But
those years ago,
it wasn't on the air then, but the public's general love for the memory of it and everything else saw it through. Now, not a chance. I think it'll fall on its arse, and utterly deserved.
I agree with that, because the public are so out of love with this now. There isn't a new generation of regular new viewers coming to it, as they will find out with their merchandise, as we can see with the actual ratings. They're all going on about how they've got those kids. No, they haven't. The only people they've got are the kids they want, the young people they want, the part of the whole cult who are listening and being brainwashed by their ideologies. So I don't think the general public are there. I've got friends who have kids, and none of them are watching Doctor Who. They're too busy watching other stuff, but they'll watch Gladiators, you know. So that's the point on that one. It's not grasped an imagination of an entire generation who will need to bring it back in 20 years' time or 30 years' time. I don't think it's there. I think we are actually seeing the end game here. And it's a long, painful death. So I don't know if you want to answer that one, Bedouin, before we move on.
I think the answer to that one will come where it falls in the schedules. If it is Christmas Day, it'll probably get a decent boost. If it's any day other than Christmas Day, which is, in my opinion, highly likely, because there's too much that the BBC needs to get on for Christmas Day, that is going to draw an audience. The Doctor Who is going to be so down the list.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not going to get the time slot that it could be on another day, be that Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, whatever, and it will get lost because people will be out doing stuff. You know, Christmas Day is a very captive audience, and I don't think Doctor Who can do well enough to draw in audiences from, you know, doing whatever Christmas stuff they're doing. You know, we mentioned Christmas Eve is on Christmas Eve. People are preparing for the following day. They're in the pub, midnight mass, whatever they're doing. You know, Christmas Eve isn't a great ratings slot. That could be where Doctor Who falls, and that will really hammer its ratings. And then as for season 2, again, if that's on at an earlier time in the year, again, I think Doctor Who suits the sort of either autumn, winter months, or, you know, January, new season of television. It fits that, but that's all dependent on them getting it ready to go for January.
It's not going to work.
Straight.
It's not going to work for the simple reason is they haven't been there this year. If they're going to tune in on Christmas and say, "Oh, Doctor Who's on again at Christmas," "Oh, we watched it last Christmas. It was rubbish." I don't think it's going to work. Let's just go to the chats quickly and catch up with people. We've got endless echo here. I was watching some classic Who, and it was so different from the nonsense we have today. It just reminded me of how entertaining it used to be. Neville is asking, saying, "I wonder if the Christmas episode will debut on iPlayer." Yes, it will. It'll be on Christmas Eve, midnight, because that's the deal with Disney. Because they'll be showing it at exactly the same times on Christmas Day around the world. So it'll be midnight on Christmas Eve, I guarantee you, and then whatever time or whatever day that they've decided. That's the other thing we're not thinking of. This is no longer just the BBC's decision. If they've said this is a Christmas special and Disney say it goes on Christmas Day, then we will have to have it on Christmas Day, and the BBC schedulers will have to obey that because that's the situation they've got. Exterminated 123, nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. Joyce of the World will drop on iPlayer midnight New Year's Eve. Depends on the Disney element again. Really is. Domgo is saying, "Who wants to see blokes snogging after Christmas dinner?" Well, I wouldn't mind that at all, and have done in the past as well, I can assure you. Over the Overseer, if the ratings are this low, does it deserve a Christmas Day slot? Absolutely not. Let's just address that as well. Absolutely. And Hayby is saying to us, maybe the half split was because Tennant fell short even before the new Who split with Tennant. I thought Tennant's return was going to be epic, but it was hugely disappointing.
That's what they thought. Yeah,
that's where it all went wrong for them as well, wasn't it? It all started from those specials. Silver Wolf is saying to us here, the only way to get a big view might work if they put the Doctor Who episode on just after the New Year fireworks celebrations on BBC One. Again, though, it's supposed to be for a family, so who's going to watch that?
It weirdly, the New Year's fireworks always do really big numbers. I think it's just one of those things. People are having house parties, and that's what they put on. But yeah, that's another random quirk of the ratings viewership.
It really is. Really is. Jamie, thank you for your super chat. Got to you. Thank you so much. Just imagine if it had been Joanna Lumley instead of Jodie. From what I hear, even Joanna wouldn't have stomached those scripts and probably would have gone earlier because she's in demand. She was doing a lot of films at the time. She's still working, and she does those wonderful shows, Jamie, doesn't she, where she goes abroad and does those lovely, in her inimitable style, her wonderful style, which is so accessible to the public. That's why they get good ratings and people love them. And now they're on the alternative or the plus channels, whatever you want to call them as well, and some of the streaming platforms. They're getting quite good views because she's just like, oh my God, look at this. And people love her. But I know what you're saying, but she was probably too old. Let's face it. The BBC, we know what they're like. Probably too old. Thank you, Jamie, for that. We really appreciate that. And Exterminated 123 is saying, I feel that the Christmas episode will have the lowest viewings of anything else that day. Gosh.
No, it'll do all right.
Well, we'll see. It's all. I don't think it'll do all right. I think it'll be there. But I think it'll be smashed by everything else that's around it.
If they put it on like something straight after Wallace and Gromit, there will be a proportion of that audience that still has the telly on that channel when Doctor Who starts. And if they turn it off after 5 minutes, those 5 minutes will count as views.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It'll just be playing with the numbers rather than accurate.
Yeah. And also when it does drop at midnight, how many are going to be watching it? Because some of the kids might be in bed waiting for Santa for Father Christmas.
Yeah. Well, you should be, really, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it's going to be broadcast on Christmas Day, then the children should theoretically be told, no, you've got to go to bed now for Father Christmas. The young ones that they're looking at, some of the older ones, I'm talking, late teens, early 20s here, should be in a bloody pub having a laugh at that time of night at Christmas Eve, getting ready to be turfed out, in my opinion. Having life, never mind watching for a blooming show to drop. You should be celebrating this wonderful event we do. Right, are we up to this one? Have we had that one? We've had that one, haven't we?
We've had that one. So we've covered the Ncuti Gatwa era in its entirety for overnights and +7s.
Right, so then we move to this one. Here you go.
Okay, so here we go. So this is the comparison that we have pointed to a few times where we are perhaps rightly, perhaps wrongly, comparing all of Doctor Who ever. And we're comparing our +7s of the modern era with the original run where you only had the transmission views. So we've got a combination of our overnights versus +7s for classic v modern Doctor Who. But we had a few comments earlier about Doctor Who being dropped, and you can see in 1989 season 26, you know, Ghostlight, Battlefield, those are all in that bracket. So our list of 23 lowest rated episodes, you know, we're in that ballpark, people. You know, Trial of a Time Lord, parts 3 and 4, Fenric, Ghostlight, Battlefield, they're all in this conversation. The ones slightly in bold, obviously, are all our series 14, 41, whatever you want to call it. So all 8 are in this list of 23 as it is. So even when we compare it to classic Doctor Who, which only had the overnights to go off, only had the transmission figures.
Yeah.
Even when we're comparing modern +7 numbers, we're still in the same ballpark as the lowest Doctor Who's ever really had.
Do you know the other thing about this as well? If I can just interject here, if I may. This is Russell T Davies. This is the guy that in the industry is looked on. Oh, he's brilliant. Isn't he fantastic? Isn't he clever? All the usual stuff that they have to say in order for them to get employed on one of his projects sometime. But this is a flop. This is a magnificent flop. This is out there with that thing I can never remember it, about the fellow that won the lottery in Wales before Doctor Who, 2004, whenever it was. That's out there. The one that he won't talk about and nobody ever acknowledges. But this series, this entire 8 episodes is out there with that. And he's got another 8 episodes coming, 9 if you include the Christmas one. But this is mainly this is him. Why can't the industry see? And why are they not looking? Or are they, do you think? Are they looking at these things in broadcast and the BARB reports and going, ooh, ooh.
Like I said, I wonder whether there was a fluke for 2005 to be a success that it was, or was it to do with the fact that he had other writers working with him?
No, it's because we were there, Paul.
As well as yeah, but I mean, in terms of the quality of the material, yeah, but
the original fans,
itself,
we'd been waiting so long. We'd been waiting 15 years. We were there to support this thing, like we did in '96, and made it a success then in Britain. We were talking about this. We sold it. We carried it. We got excited about it. We watched it on the night. We bigged it up. People were coming through. Don't underestimate the power, people out there in entertainment, for any fandom. We can make you and we can break you.
But the quality of the writing was better in 2005, don't you think, compared to now?
No, I'm not saying in 2005, we were all there. We carried that show. We brought the public in with us. We did our bit.
But if it was as bad as it was now, then we would have been saying it was crap, wouldn't we?
But the problem was we'd been starved for 15 years.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad, was it? He was playing it on the fence. He was writing knowing there was a built-in evidence. I mean, Mal Young said that, one of the executive producers that nobody ever talks about. He knew there was a built-in audience there, but he didn't understand it.
Yeah.
They all did. So he got the mix right there. They were saying, right, we've got to welcome back the fans that have been waiting for this and actually have made this happen because we've been there. So we've got our ready-made audience, but we've also got to have a new audience coming, hence the soap elements, hence the character of Rose. Because, you know, Rose was a different companion for us as well, but it was more for the new audience, because you could have put anybody in there and we would have accepted a new companion. But the fact is, he played it properly. This time round, I think it was complacency and a lack of confidence, not a lack of, an overindulgence of confidence in himself to say, this is what you're getting. And it's all about my agendas and what I want to say. And how dare you do not like my friends' previous version of this. I'm going to double down on this with this timeless child thing. And we're going to say this. And we're going to let the lead do this. And we're going to do... And gradually, we are where we are now, where even us have turned around and said, this is a pile of poo. We're not going to support it. How many people have come out on social media and stuff and gone, this is terrible. This is bad telly.
Yeah.
Even some of his acolytes have. But I think where we are now, you know, we have to keep referring back to the fact that where we are now started in, well, before 2017, really, because it did set in. I know you mentioned the Doctor's wife and everything with the sentient TARDIS and everything, and and but it was in Moffat's later years with Capaldi that it really came in there. You knew the writing was definitely on the wall, and then she came in, and before she'd even filmed a scene, she was slagging off the white male audience straight away.
All that
Like,
nonsense.
never a smart move, dopey cow. But she went with it, she doubled down on it, and then we are where we are today. So this is the result of several years of focused abuse and neglect and absolute complacency and arrogance. Russell T Davies thinks that if he takes a dump on somebody's screen, they will give it high ratings, but people are actually seeing it for the crap that it is, and
more.
Yeah, and he doesn't know where to go. And now he's being criticised by some people that were kissing his arse before that, which is interesting, really.
Yeah. Well, we've got
JT.
we've got Legion of James here, Bedway, saying if the writing isn't good and doesn't reflect the character and legacy of the Doctor, and then the actor cast is incapable of carrying the embodiment of the character, then it's never going to ever work. Well said, Legion of James.
Yeah.
More articulate than I am. I totally agree with that. And this is the other thing as well, isn't it? Had they gone, I'm now convinced that a lot of this was because Mr. Gatwa was liked because he was one of them, basically. Had they gone for an actor, and I'd like to know one day who that original actor was that they were going to offer it to before he walked through the door. I'd love to know that. We'll find out one day, and that's a show in itself, what could have been. But we're looking at, had they gone for even a slightly older actor, and we know they don't want to now because it's all about the youth in it, it's all about the kids now, bringing them into it. So they've got to have somebody who apparently blabs all the time, dresses like them, acts like them, says things like honey all the minute, is now got a sexuality. Apparently that's but it's not good for the show, and it's ruined it, hasn't it? What are we going to say, Bidwea?
Yeah, just to really expand on this particular point of discussion and to bring it back to numbers, I wonder if you could put up the finales slide again.
Yeah,
because this really demonstrates how, in my opinion, Doctor Who, you're right, Paul, started quite well and started strongly and got a good audience.
That's not it.
But
Which
it actually grew.
That one, isn't it?
Yeah, this one. So you can see how from the line graph, the initial audience for Partner of the Ways is pretty decent, above 6 million, approaching 8 million. But then Doctor Who managed to, find lightning in a bottle with David Tennant's casting, and it grew the audience. But then when Tennant leaves the first time, it drops, and we get a maintenance for Matt Smith. Matt Smith doesn't do too badly, but then a drop off for Capaldi, and then there's that initial interest in Whittaker before it tails off and craters away. So in terms of our general audience, they really loved David Tennant and Billy Piper and Catherine Tate and those combinations. Those were the big hits.
Yeah. But also that series with Catherine Tate was massive because, again, people knew who she was and wanted to see her acting because that was the first bit of real proper acting she'd done on telly.
In terms of drama, yeah, absolutely. And that novelty factor of Jodie Whittaker's first series, we got that increase.
Novelty being the word.
Yeah. But now we've seen that. Yeah, we've seen that continued trend. And what's really surprising is if we looked at the numbers for the specials when David Tennant came back, they really didn't hit the heights. They were around the 8 million kind of figure that Church on Ruby Road got, which is not quite. I mean, I'm being generous there. It was only 8 million after 28 days, but it wasn't the impact that they were clearly hoping for, and it has dropped off since with some of the issues you guys have mentioned. Being
I'm sure that
pushing the fans away and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure. The majority of fandom went through Whittaker. They have not come back for this. They may have tried it at Christmas. He's not for me. And now, as Paul's saying, the word of mouth doesn't help either. So we've got all that side of stuff, and the fact that we're here with all our Who viewers as well, and we're talking about this. That doesn't help the fact that we're dumbing it down and saying don't bother watching it because it was bloody awful. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, you're not going to see any element apart from a police box. and a version of the theme tune, because it's not even the same character in there. We've got Silver Wolf saying to us here, it's a disgrace to all Doctor Who fans that the entire late series are in the bottom 23 for views. The entire cast, crew, and BBC, RTD, and anyone should be made to apologise for this rubbish TV. Pooh's Lost Eyes is saying, curious to know JT's opinion of New Who, particularly RTD1, considering all the figures in the background. You're not really. Listen, when Doctor Who came back in 2005, Pooh's Lost Eyes, I was a big supporter of it. And I actually really, really enjoyed it. I bought into it. Absolutely bought into it and supported it, as you can see. Got the DVDs, got the DVD box sets of it, got the books, supported the novels. I've got loads of stuff here for it. CDs. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I think the best one for me was 4. When Moffat took over, I quite liked Series 5. Started to lose interest a little bit for 6 and 7. Didn't like the fact 7 was printed. And then when Capaldi came on, I stayed with it for Capaldi. And what nonsense scripts he was being given. But it wasn't as bad as it is now. So on the whole, I quite liked what RTD did in his first iteration, apart from the soap stuff. I could have done without all that crap. And having to get the companion home every 10 minutes. Didn't want any of that. Didn't like the attraction. So that's my view on that one. As we move forward and looking at some of those episodes in our reviews, then we can talk more about that. And hello and welcome to Who's Views to Cara Hughes. I'll be honest, I haven't been able to watch any of this series. I've learned more from reading all the eviscerations of this series than watching the series. Good word. Good word. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying there, isn't it, guys? You know, the word of mouth. You don't need to watch it, just stick with us. And she's also adding there, to be honest, I'd rather have surgery in the woods with a stick. It's a bit worrying. Shouldn't RTD be writing with Star Wars, says Paul Ashworth? Well, somebody has suggested that's his aim, to get into all of those. And problem being is saying to us here, season 26 had an average total rating of 4.31 million. Gatwa's first season has a total average rating of 3.71. The thing is as well, as Bedweer has said here, Lee, in those days, we shouldn't really compare the two sets of series, because in those days you got one chance to see it.
Yeah.
On the night.
Yeah. It's a shame that, you know, VHS home video was starting to become more and more common in the late 80s when season 26 was running, but those numbers aren't counted. So that would have been interesting had we had those numbers.
I think it would have gone up because, you know, I was watching it. Yeah. I was watching it live for those 3 series, but I was also recording it at the same time and then watching it again. Because I was away, I was a student, and there was no guarantee I would be in on the night. So I think to recall it was a Monday and then a Wednesday. There was no guarantee I was going to be in, but when I was in, I was watching it. Somehow I managed to be in for all of them when it was broadcast live. I'm not sure as a student how that actually happened.
It could easily have been 2 million more, I would imagine, from VHS recordings, or even Betamax.
Yeah. Betamax. What Tidy Boy's saying there, Ian, Mrs. Brown for the next Doctor, anyone, is where I think we are now at again with this series. That's the modern day equivalent of Paul Daniels is the next Doctor Who.
God.
Yeah,
comedy.
Yeah. But that's where I think, I mean, I know that's there for funny, Tidy Boy. I know you've been, but I think that's where we are. I totally. We've got all these, so many comments coming in from everybody here. Thank you for everybody for your support again and coming through with all this. They're very much speculating who could be the next the next Doctor. We're not even there yet. I'm going to say it again. I think you're not getting a next Doctor. I think this is it.
Yeah.
I think Ncuti's it. I think this will be the last one, possibly for good in my eyes. I don't think it's there. No.
That must petrify to a certain level. And I know he's an arrogant narcissist and thinks everything he does is perfect, but there must be a part of Russell T Davies that is actually bricking it, knowing that this is going to be a huge thing on his CV, that he oversaw the return of Doctor Who and he also oversaw the death of it.
The death of Doctor
Who. He'll never live that down. Just in the same way Chibnall hasn't lived down that 80s TV interview where he's slagging off JNT and then he had the arrogance to go and produce that crap that he did. You know, he's never lived that down. And from what I've heard, he hates that clip. So the more it's shared around, the better. But this will be an absolute millstone around Russell T Davies's career, and he
And it
deserves
should
it.
be. It absolutely
he
should be,
deserved
because, you know, it shows how not to do it. He showed in everybody's eyes how to do it, how to bring back a show that's been off the air for so long. And I'm going to stick to my guns and say, well, he knew it could be successful because we were there. We were all there. But how many of us have been driven away? I mean, look at George that comes and joins our reviews. He's not really got into it. And he's representative of a lot of the original Doctor Who fans. No, I'll just stick with 63 and 89, thank you. You know, and 96 and push.
He could have easily kept us here, you know, if he did it right. You know, we'd have given the same support. I think most of us were hoping it was going to be better than it was with Chibnall, and we'd have given them that support if he'd given us Doctor Who.
Yeah. Paul is saying to us here, Paul Rose is saying, what baffles me is all these franchises seem currently to be controlled by the worst possible people. I just think 90% of fans could surely do a better job, but how do they allow this stuff? It's the whole industry, unfortunately. That's what they're all jumped onto this bandwagon because they feel they have to be nice. They have to be on the right side of history. But what they're effectively doing is lying and denying truths in their knee-bending obsession with appearing to be nice.
Yeah, it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall, because I can imagine there's a lot of, well, why aren't they watching it? They'll just be disbelief rather than, well, it can't be us because we're doing what we did before. Why is it not working?
It's called ignorance.
And the problem is it'll hopefully will cast doubt in the minds of those involved for when they're looking for other commissions, and they'll, you know, maybe that'll change their tack when they come to pitch for the next drama on Channel 4, or maybe it'll push them in the other direction and they'll be bolder and actually I need to be more out there and push stuff even harder to
way,
you know, that's probably the more likely.
Well, it is a bit weird because when you look at it, they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down because we're the ones that are wrong. This has been now going on for years, flop after flop after flop. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, everything else, Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters from 2016. That's the only one I can see that's done a course correction, Ghostbusters, and it was massively successful. And now apparently, allegedly, they're going for the third sequel, if you like. And nobody wants to talk about the women one, the 2016 one, because that was an almighty flop. And that's where it all come from. But these people, if they were going to course correct, I genuinely believe they would have done it by now. And they had the chance with Doctor Who to course correct because they knew the criticism about the Whittaker era and the Chibnall era. They knew it. There was no way you could avoid that because it was everywhere. This is not right. We didn't want the female one, blah, 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 blah. And as I keep saying, he had one job. And one job was to bring all fans back together and reunite us no matter what opinions, and try and heal it by just giving us Doctor Who, a Time Lord in his TARDIS battling monsters. Oh no, he had to put this in and this in and this in, and pronoun nonsense and delusion. Oh, and we interviewed everybody for the role of the Doctor: male, female, non-binary, trans. No, it's not going to happen. I reckon the entertainment industry is going to have to take one hell of a hit. And with cinemas possibly closing down, sadly, films not working, billions being lost financially. At some point, somebody somewhere has got to say, we've got to stop this. But it's not going to be anytime soon. I'm sure of it. I'm sad to say. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're right.
Well,
I don't know how Disney can afford to keep having all these losses, though, because they're going to go bankrupt, surely.
It's not just Disney, it's all of them. Because when you think about it, they're all invested in each other, because that's how the business works now. Because, if we invest in that and we invest in that, we might be able to do this. And then these alleged creatives come along saying, I'm going to make a show that's going to ruin everything that's gone for the last 50, 60 years. So alienation.
If no one's watching, no one's buying anything, no one's subscribing, whatever, they're not getting into it, then it's just going to go like that, isn't it? Surely there'll be no money left. You'd like to think.
Yeah, well, look what they've just done with Star Wars and the latest flop there, and they still don't care. They, as they did with us, they attacked the Star Wars fans, solidarity with the Star Wars fans. No, listen to them, because they're not ists and phobes and ots, and neither are we. We're fans. We want to love the crap you're pushing out, but give us the right sort of stuff. Give us the shows we want, please. Otherwise, we're not going to invest in the show properly. We're not going to support the show. We're going to diss it on shows like this. And we're certainly not buying your merchandise. Bugger off with that. So therefore, you're going to lose your business elements because these people that take the franchises to make your merchandise are going to turn around eventually saying,
your product's crap. Yeah.
I mean, Disney's hemorrhaging money. Just it's flying out the doors, you know. And a lot of that is because they bought into Marvel, and they thought that the trajectory for the Marvel films would just continue going up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
But actually, once you got to was it Avengers Endgame, it kind of that's when people had a natural ending point of I've finished the Marvel movies now.
Yeah.
And yet they've gone out and done more of them, and they're all looking around saying, "Oh well, why aren't we hitting the same box office numbers that the last one did?" Well, it's because there's a natural plateau that happens with an audience, and people highlighted that the War Games was on that list of 23.
Yeah,
don't forget that was, you know, Doctor Who had 6 years at that point, and it was on, you know, 48 weeks of the year. You know, it was on constantly, and the audience will fatigue eventually, and this is exactly what's happened. So unless you're giving them something new and fresh, which is highly unlikely when you've got the same people writing it all the time, the audience isn't going to think, oh, there's something more for me. People are going to be, well, I've seen that and I know what Doctor Who is. I don't need to engage in that. I'll go watch, you know, something else which is a bit different, or you know, there's another you know, whether it's The Boys or you know, Bridgerton and something that's a bit different.
Or
that's what I'm interested in, and I'll go and watch.
Or repeats, because we're now living in an age. I mean, I was out a lot in the 90s. I was working and partying, quite frankly. Okay, that's all I was doing in the 90s, so I don't really remember much of it. Thank God Doctor Who wasn't on, because it wouldn't got a look in. I do remember Voyager coming along, but that was on video, so I could watch that whenever I wanted. Here in the UK, you had to buy Voyager for Star Trek, you know, so I bought them as they came out. They came out 2 a month, I think, every so often, didn't they? So that's how I saw it. Had that been on television, I wouldn't have seen it. But I'm now catching up with 90s television on these alternative channels that have come up, some of which is absolutely awful. But some of it's quite good. It's brand new to me, and I'm watching that rather than the new stuff that's turning out today, because I'm not interested in your reality television shows. I'm not interested in some drama like Vera, which I used to love with the fabulous Brenda Blethyn. I used to love that. But then the last few years, suddenly I'll get the T issue and the Q issue coming out. I'll switch it off. Not interested. Not what I want to see. I'll go back and I found Touch of Frost recently. Brilliant stuff. But that's the alternative, isn't it? So people might be finding that, plus all the streaming stuff where they can actually choose the film they want to watch when they want it. So that's what's actually affecting the new stuff, because the new stuff is cheap, tacky, lazy, good for nothing, rubbish, in my opinion. Yeah. Why would you watch it? Hartnell's Ghost, I'm going to answer on behalf of Bedweir here. Does Bedweir know how season 1 ratings compare to Class spin-offs? Probably not, because I haven't asked him to do that. And Class was a while ago as well, wasn't it? And that was a massive flop too, wasn't it?
So that was about 11 o'clock at night as well, wasn't it? I think so.
Yeah.
So
I'd forgotten about it, to be honest.
So for those who don't know Class, it was a young adult
allegedly
version of Doctor Who spin-off. It got released on iPlayer first. The day it got dropped was the anniversary of Torchwood being premiered on BBC Three, as it was back then, I think. So it had been on the iPlayer for a little while. Then you're right, Paul. It was on at about 11:15 at night, or even later, and it was 2 episodes back to back. So you watched the first episode, and then it was midnight by the time you finished the second one. So it had pretty abysmal ratings. I've just done a quick check, and we're talking, you know, hundreds of thousands of viewers.
Yeah.
So we're not at that point with this current series 1, but then that's largely down to the fact that it's on a more respectable hour when it is on BBC One. But yes, Class was an experiment that didn't work in any way, shape, or form, unfortunately.
Well, there you
And
go.
even the cameo of Compelled, they couldn't have saved it. And he's only
That's the only
in
one I
one
watched.
episode. Yeah, yeah.
What was it?
Yeah.
Was it the only one? That's the only one I watched because I thought this
Yeah.
isn't for me. And because
Yeah.
again we were told this is for kids. This is for the BBC Besotted. I've said this before. The Besotted were trying to get the young future license fee payers. I thought no. Well, I've been told this isn't for me. It isn't for me. I'm going to switch it off then. Never tell your audience this isn't for you. Let them decide if it's for them or not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basic rule of television and production and entertainment, you idiots.
Nobody ever came out and said the Sarah Jane Adventures was just for those who watch CBeebies.
Exactly.
No,
We all,
yeah,
watched,
yeah.
we all watched it and we all loved it.
We all watched it, DVDs and Blu-rays all over the shop with that one because it was our Sarah Jane as well.
There's a show we have to do the ratings for Sarah Jane Adventures. There's a job for you, buddy.
Well, we need to start doing the reviews of it, to be honest, as well.
Yeah.
We need to start bringing
Yes,
the reviews
please.
of the Sarah Jane series in. We need to start doing them soon. We'll put them into the schedule somewhere, Who Viewers. DDS Curtis, nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. I wonder if they are doing this deliberately to try and end streaming since they aren't making as much money from movies and theatres. I think the big plan, personally, from what I know, is to get people looking at the streaming elements because they think there's money in it, whether it be through advertising or subscription, definitely, obviously, or whatever. I just don't think they've cracked the model yet because they're trying to guess what the public is doing around the world and the public is outwitting them. Quite frankly, let's face it. And I think part
it's not difficult, is it? Let's be honest.
It's not. And I think part of it's because what they're putting out there is not what we want. It's shockingly bad. Why would you pay whatever you've got to pay for Disney Plus as a Star Wars fan when it's not Star Wars they're giving you? It's some sort of lecture. You're going to cancel your subscription, as some of you in the chat have said tonight. You're doing that.
And it's a very competitive market. There is so much content out there. There's so much choice that this idea that you have this regular income from people signed up to your service. Netflix is seeing their subscriptions, start to deteriorate and decline because there's so much other choice, whether it's, Disney Plus or Paramount Plus, all this sort of stuff, that's available in a wide variety of countries, Amazon Prime, or there's so much content that you can tap into and they're all competing for the same audience.
Yeah, we've got lots of you saying that you're watching stuff from the old days like I am now. With Stephen there saying, I've been watching Sapphire and Steel, classic Doctor Who, Hammer House of Horror, and Children of the Stones. All class dramas compared to today's dramas, well, because they're proper entertaining drama, the word being drama. We've got Graham saying, I watch 99% old cult shows from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and find them nearly always so much more imaginative and entertaining than modern telly. I'd agree with that. At the moment, we've still got the reruns of the Avengers. They've started again. They've gone back to the Dino Rig period and they're starting again. Once you get into that, superb. I'm not talking the American superhero things, by the way. I'm talking Steed and Mrs. Peel, the proper Avengers, you American people, you.
Yeah, I discovered the Troubleshooters / Mogul, which was a 1960s drama. And I purely discovered it from having seen an episode that has been found in a film collector's, deceased collection. And I've got really into that. It's great because it's just solid drama. And it's just really interesting seeing how it was done in the 60s, compared to everything now, which is all shiny CGI nonsense and
hollow nonsense.
I've said it before. I recommend Talking Pictures TV. Superb
it's
channel,
isn't it? Yeah.
Lots of old movies. They're showing Batman from the 60s on at the moment at the weekend on the kind of like children's cinema slots that they have Saturday, Sunday. Superb. And I just caught Murder in Reverse before I came on with Hartnell in it. A great movie from 1945. Superb. Recommend if you get a chance to watch it.
There's loads of, but this is why I think they're actually competing with stuff that is decades old, and the decades sort of stuff is more attractive because, I mean, you can sit there and not get.
And they don't edit the programs either. It's all what's and all, which is superb. So.
We've got Sean Oliver here. Nice to see you. Saying, am I the only one who loved Class? Yes. We've also got Russ Morgan here.
I didn't mind it. It was all right.
It was all right. Yeah.
We've also got Russ saying, I love Torchwood. See a doctor. But Bet Bombshell's also saying here, a competitive fan project will eventually hijack the core of one of these big franchises that are not living up to fandom's taste. It's unavoidable due to technical access, and Doctor Who feels so prime for this. Totally agree. I think we are approaching another what we used to call the wilderness years, and the rise of the fan production will now take over. I have seen, as I've said before on this show, so many good amateur Star Wars fan films. Superb quality stuff we couldn't dreamt of the last time Doctor Who was off air in the 90s. And it's more engaging. There's more love into it. The costumes, the action, some of that stuff I can't believe. I just watch it just going, that's Star Wars for me. I'd rather watch any of that than any of the stuff that's been churned out by Disney. It's so much better. I think Doctor Who's going the same way. We've got people like Philip, haven't we, coming along with his Doctor Who meets the Sandman. Scorpion. The Scorpion.
Yeah.
So that's all coming. You know, we've got. I think we're going to see more of it.
I'm thinking of. I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to get more of it though, and I think the fans, as these things are laid to rest, will rise again like they did in the 90s. And I think this time around we're going to get good. Well, not that it wasn't better, but even better, more quality stuff, because the technology's changed, their abilities have changed. They can do things now so much more than we could.
Imagine downtime now. How good would that be?
It's incredible, isn't it? Mark Posgate is saying to us he didn't like it. It's just simply because he didn't get the viewing figures as well, and the fans weren't there in the masses they thought they were going to be. Hartnell's Ghost is saying thanks, Bedouia. Yeah, we've got a couple more slides from him coming along. Julianne, nice to see you. My 86-year-old mum loved the Sarah Jane Adventures, but hates RTD's show. Well, your mum's got taste. That's what I say. Taste. And tell her that we are at some point going to get our act together and start reviewing the Sarah Jane Adventures here on Who's Views. We've been talking about it for a year. We've got to start getting this stuff sorted. I can't wait to watch those again. It'd be fantastic. Thank you, everybody that is here. Let's have a look. Sean is saying, as a straight guy, I love both, but never saw them as gay. I just saw them as edgier. Oh, that's for the series there for both Torchwood and Class. Yeah. When they market the series though as being something like that, I think it's just tacky. You know, really is. I mean, that's. It's like they were saying when they launched this thing, isn't it? This is going to be the gayest Doctor Who ever, and boy, they weren't wrong. But you're already alienating, not through any bigotry or phobia or ism. People just think, oh, in that case, then I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch. I just want to watch Doctor Who, and they've turned him, and which they did. If they've turned him into that, I don't want to watch it. Do you know what I mean?
And why did they have to? That's the thing I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, that's right. They didn't have to, did they?
No.
They didn't have to do that at all. Yeah.
It was all about him, wasn't it? And pushing that agenda, especially with the drag queen and all that, because they're living in that fantasy island boo-boo land. Right, so we've got that particular one. We showed this one from Bedouia on the graphics there. So there we go. Very bad news for RTD and his crew. And then finally, you've got this one, Bedouia.
Yeah, so I thought we'd end on a positive, just to counteract everyone who's going to, comment on this video later after we've wrapped up and say how negative we are. Doctor Who was the top drama for the week in terms of the overnight figures. So the viewers is the overnight figures. But yeah, top drama compared to Casualty. Midsummer Murders, I imagine, was a repeat, but I might be wrong.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Is Rebus the new Rebus that's been calculated?
That's the new one. Yeah, that's the new one.
I'm surprised at that figure. That's interesting.
But then the start time is, nearly 9:30 in the evening. So,
yeah.
But it goes to show, Paul, as well, that, reboots don't all necessarily work because you are dealing with different people now, aren't you? I mean, we'll remember the original Rebus and the effect that had.
Well, Ken Stott was the best, I have to say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, it's like somebody was saying in the chat there, why are they just remaking stuff? Because they're not capable of doing their own stuff. Yeah, they can't do their own stuff. So they'll say, well, let's go and take that old classic and let's recast it and let's make it modern for the modern audience. And then the modern audience doesn't exist, so they're not going to watch it.
Yeah. But you can see, you got, Vera, which was on ITV3, gets into number 6 in terms of drama.
And I'm going to state here, guys, the reason why its numbers have plummeted to that, because that was a big drama for ITV1, it's because it went woke about 3 years ago. I couldn't believe that particular Sunday night I'm watching My Beloved Vera, and she's basically saying what these writers and what entertainment was saying to this trans character, of course. Oh, you should have been in a women's facility. Oh, they shouldn't have done that to you. Oh, they shouldn't have. There was the message. I switched it off and I've never gone back. Yep. So I'm glad she's leaving. I wonder if Miss Blatham saw the writing on the wall, thought, I'll take the money and run for another 2 series, and then I go, oh, good on you if you have, Brenda. Tell you.
Yeah.
Yep. So there we go on that one, eh, Bedweer?
Yeah. So just to end on a positive, Doctor Who top drama. At least for this week, if we go back and look at other weeks, obviously you had Red Eye was quite a decent hit for ITV. That beat Doctor Who fairly consistently. We've already compared Mr. Bates versus the Post Office and the massive figures that managed to achieve in terms of drama this year. So sometimes with these sorts of things, it's just picking the week. And they can be very selective depending on what else is on. But at the moment, everything's kind of dominated by the football anyway. So a lot of the schedule, especially this week now, we've got Wimbledon on the BBC as well. So there's a lot of sport on. This time of year isn't really keyed up for drama. But Doctor Who, #1 drama for that week in terms of overnights. So there's a positive for those that lay into us and say we're too negative.
Well, yeah, and thank you for that, and thank you for putting that in there. But the other thing about that is, I mean, you mentioned that what was it called? Red thing?
Red Eye, yeah.
Red Eye. I heard people talking about that. You know, I didn't hear anybody talking about Doctor Who. People are actually saying to me, "Have you seen Red Eye? What is it?" No, I haven't, because I don't watch television. No, because it doesn't interest me. I haven't seen that. Oh, you've got to watch it. You got to watch it. I haven't yet, but there were certain things that captured their imagination. They said, "You've got to watch this." You know. Like Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. People are still talking about that today. Fantastic drama. Allegedly a sequel's in the work for next year. Watch that. That's the one that's going to win all the awards, everybody.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Come January, that's the one that gets all the awards. I guarantee you, because it's so important here, even today to the British, the public and politics and everything like that. It's all there, isn't it? Thank you very much. Look at this. Look at this one, Bedweer. Over the obviously saying, Bedweer, you're a breadwinner. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Fantastic. We've got one more thing, because one more thing we wanted to talk about is it wasn't just everybody knew Who that was on, Disney Who that was on, was it, Bedweer? Because they did sneak in, much to our horror, this. Now, we're not criticizing here the wonderful, legendary, must never be touched ever again Pyramids of Mars, but we're talking about the edited, cut down, awful version
Travesty
that they put on. Yes, the travesty. Thank you, Paul. They put that on recently as well on BBC 4.
They did indeed. So the Tales of the TARDIS on BBC 4 on the 20th of June. I had hoped would get into the list of top 30 multi-channel programs, which covers ITV2, BBC 3, BBC 4, etc. Those kind of channels. So there is a top 30 list that is compiled of those channels over the week. And Tales of the TARDIS didn't make it onto that list, which was quite a surprise. I was genuinely expected it to be on there. Unfortunately, the lowest position, 30th on that list, was Venom, the Marvel movie, which I don't even think was a premiere. It was just another
repeat,
another showing of it. But that got 240,000 viewers. So we can therefore conclude that Tales of the TARDIS, Pyramids of Mars got less than 240,000 views.
The thing with some of those films, like the Venom one, and a lot of those original Marvel films, and even to an extent some of the DC films, when they come on, people, I think, are more inclined to say, I'll just get a cup of tea and watch this, because you don't have to think about it, do you? Yeah, with these superhero films, you can just go with the flow, and you're taken out of the real world, usually, and you're enjoying some guy flying through the air or being a bat or wherever you want, you know, all that sort of stuff. You know, you've got all of that. It's escapism, isn't it? So I can see why that people would look at that, because it's an interesting premise with the alien and all that with Venom. It's interesting. I've watched it myself and thought, after the end of it, I thought, I don't know what happened in it, but it was quite good. Do you know what I mean? Because it was one of those comfort things on television. You can have a digestive biscuit, you can have a cuppa, and you can watch it. Obviously, Pyramids didn't do that.
Yeah, for those that are interested, the most watched program on BBC 4 for the week was actually a repeat episode of the Antiques Roadshow from 2018, but that got 590,000 viewers.
Wow.
You see, again, that says something about where we are in Britain now. So that many people in the United Kingdom watched a repeat from 400 years ago.
Yeah, and
And it's
tells
because
us
it's still timeless.
Yeah.
It's still time. That's the thing with the Antiques Roadshow. You could watch one with the late great, bless him, Arthur Negus. You can watch one of his things from 20, 30 years ago, bless him, and you can still get a thrill out of it because it's still a human reaction on that sort of show. Going, oh my god, it's worth how much? That's why they haven't messed with that format over the years.
Yeah.
You know, because it still works. So it doesn't matter whether you're watching the new version of it or an old version. It's still the same show. That's what they've got wrong with Doctor Who. Do you see my point now? Do you see what I did there?
If it ain't broke, try not to fix it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So.
They are insane with this, aren't they? They really are
They
insane.
can't help it though, can they? They have to fiddle.
Yeah. So Sydney is saying to us here, that must have been a good episode. Probably not. It was probably just the usual stuff. As kids, I used to hate it on a Sunday. Get it off. All these old people talking about antiques. Get off. Hated it as a kid. Now I quite like them. Not the new version, but if the old one comes on and it's there, how much was that worth? How much would that be worth now? You know, where is it? Who's got it? So it's all quite bizarre. Thank you, everybody, once again for all your comments. It's been absolutely wonderful seeing you on this particular one. To be honest, I have to admit that part of me is actually delighted that a wider audience didn't see this awful version of this classic. I would rather refer them to the DVD or the iPlayer for this, because what they did to it, as we covered on one of our shows, was abominable, as Tom might have said.
Yeah, it was
We
horrendous.
must never forgive them. Sorry, Ian.
It was horrendous. It was an absolute desecration of a classic. It's like they might as well have gone like Just Stop Oil into an art gallery and thrown some soup over a classic work of art.
Well, that's what they did. Isn't it? That's what they more or less did. Yeah.
Vandalism, definitely.
That story is damn near perfect, and to do that is just obscene.
And all because, again, as we know, they have to do these things like they did with the Daleks in colour for a mythical new audience.
Yeah.
And that mythical new audience is mythical. And those that loved it, it's so minute. They might as well just keep it the way it was. Maybe put some alternative CGI in there as an alternative version like they do on the Blu-rays and they used to do on the DVDs. Do it, but make sure you say, well, this is an alternative. Don't edit it and hack it and put scenes over each other and characters talking over each other and adding new versions of the music and stuff like that. Just give it the time it needed. I'm sorry, Paul. It just annoys me.
Because as Ian said, Primrose Mars is near perfect. But if you're going to try and redo it and make it for a new audience, can you actually try and make it better if you can, not make it worse than it is? It seems to be a really bizarre thing to do. You know?
Yeah, if they were going to do something, I would have just said to them, look, we show the 4 episodes as a movie, and if they don't like it, they don't like it, and let's put a little bit of CGI in there, not hack it to bits like they did to fit this. Oh, they won't watch anything more than an hour because of
it's like when they do the extras on the Blu-rays, when they do the extra special effects on there, and often I appreciate what they're trying to do, but they never make them any better than the originals. It just makes them, for us, you kind of make you very aware of the fact it's been changed, you know?
Exactly. SJ is here saying unspeakable abomination. I think you're all making the same points as us in the chat. Thank you very much. I made a point of missing that Tales of the TARDIS. Julianne, again, like the series, I would say don't bother going to look. Bill is saying to us here with the Antiques Roadshow, the bigger and uglier the item is, the more it's worth. Well, I might go in for it myself. I'll take myself and say, how much am I? Oh, yes. And Domgo is saying shoehorning in the Logopolis music was unforgivable, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the whole thing, though, Domgo? The whole thing was cringeworthy. I couldn't stand it. And we've got here RTD retcon the time tunnel into the time vortex just to suit his stupid plot with Scooby Tech. Yeah, exactly. It's just criminal. And apparently, so the gossip is, apparently they're bringing it out on bloody DVD and Blu-ray. Don't waste your time, people, because you're not going to get any sales on that one. I tell you. I'd love to know how the iPlayer views on Pyramids of Mars are doing now, because you would have to add it onto the original 4-week transmission, and then the repeats it got.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Listen, Badria, as ever, thank you so much for what you've done with all that. Really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a lot of work for you over the last few weeks.
Really brilliant.
So
Get
yeah,
started with the Sarah Jane Adventures, like I suggested. That'll be great.
Yes, well, if anyone does have any other suggestions, if you want to compare, we mentioned Christmas specials and see how the numbers have looked previously to what they're looking at in the modern day, then email who'sone@gmail.com for any rating suggestions, any specials going forward that you would like us to have a look at.
Yeah, why not? And if you're up for doing that, thank you so much.
Box office takings for all the Carry On films, please. With the 60s ones.
Oh, that'll take a while.
Adjusted for decimalization.
Well, I did wish to make a small apology. So when we talked about the box office takings for Leg End of the Ruby Slippers and Empire of Dunces, I forgot that actually Deep Breath, the Capaldi debut episode, also had a screening.
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
Which I'd forgotten. So I apologize for not including those numbers at the time when we talked about them. But
shame on you. Shame on you.
It wouldn't have met. Well, I went to the premiere at the time, so
yeah, you've just gone downhill.
Sure.
I mean, we could open a can of worms there, because I seem to recall that they also showed the end of series 1 as a 3D film in selected cinemas. I might be wrong on that one, but I'm sure somebody said to me, or I remember something about that, because it also came out on a Blu-ray, which I didn't buy. I thought, no, you've had enough money from me this year. But anyway,
there was a 3D trailer for series 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there was definitely a 3D version of the one with introduced Missy. Because I remember the Blu-ray coming out, or the Steelbook, or the 4K, or whatever it was. I don't know, but it was definitely out there. Because I didn't buy it. I thought, no, I don't like the story. But we'll save that for the review of that 2 episodes, which will come up one day here as well. Mike Disney is saying to us here, is K9 and Company the genesis of the Sarah Jane Adventures? Yes.
Pretty much.
Next question. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. That's where it all started. And it's referred to in the Sarah Jane Adventures, isn't it? Nice and gently. We will be looking at the Sarah Jane Adventures at some point when we can get our acts together here. So, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you've rung that bell so you get notifications of what we're going to be doing. We might be back very soon with more news here on Headlines. But again, thanks to Bedouia for all that. Thank you so much for all your work on that one. We will be talking about the ratings for the new version of Doctor Who again when the next episode comes along, which is called Joy to the World. And it's going to be on at Christmas. And we'll be looking at
Is Joy the name of the woman that's supposed to be in it?
Yes.
I think it is. Yes, that's supposed to be the twist, isn't it? She's called Joy.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, and don't forget, we will be covering more about that as they release more details. We've already had a bit of casting about it. I don't know why they always say, well, yeah, this person's going to be in it. It's all in the can. They filmed it last year. I don't know what Well, anyway, there we go. So we'll be looking at all that and everything. So stay with us here on Who's Views for Headlines. We're also going to be starting to look at original Doctor Who now, as I call it, proper Doctor Who. Join us on what would have been the late great John Pertwee's birthday this Sunday as we look at Death to the Daleks. I've got practically all the Whotastic panel joining with me on that one because they all want to celebrate the man's birthday.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Come and join us for that. And we've got lots more planned for you as well. Our Carry On film reviews starting. Our next one I can tell you is Cleo. We're going to be reviewing Carry On Cleo very, very shortly. And we're also starting our new series of reviewing the Peter Cushing Hammer House of Horror films. We'll let you know more about that in the next couple of weeks. And also, we will get around to looking at the Sarah Jane Adventures, which we will do in episode order on that one, because it's all sort of linked. So stay with us on that. I'll get our acts together and we'll come in for that. But once again, thank you so much for being our fabulous ratings guru on that one. Really appreciate it all. Thank you to absolutely everybody that's now saying good night to us. Yes. And Scott Mullins is saying, Pertwee is the best Doctor. There's a certain person here that will agree with that one. To Paul and Ian, as ever, thank you so much. Who knows when we might be back soon, because you just know it, don't you? As soon as they drop a headline, we're going to be here to talk about it. Until we see you next on Who's Views, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you for all your comments. As ever, you are brilliant. And I'm going to miss you. Till we're here again. We'll see you all soon, everybody. Bye bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye bye.